Chapter 837. Tomb Guardians of the Luo Clan, Step Forward. As soon as the voice fell, the eyes of countless old monsters in the audience immediately lit up. On one side was Qin Shao, who was the strongest among the 8th grade Tomb Guardians. On the other side was the Tomb Guardian of the Battle King Luo clan. A battle of this level would surely be very exciting. The clan lord of the Qin clan smiled coldly. His lips moved but no sound came out. Obviously, he was transmitting his voice to someone. Chen Shao, who was standing at the center of the venue, was expressionless, waiting for the upcoming battle. Suddenly, he heard a voice. His eyes immediately turned cold. In the next moment, an indiscernible ferocious light flashed across his eyes. There were only 4 words in the voice. "Don't show mercy." The 6th ancestor of the Luo clan sighed slightly and said to Luo Xian, Luo Shao and the others behind him, "Ning Fan hasn't arrived yet. I suppose he won't come. The 7 of you, go on stage. Don't feel pressured. It doesn't matter even if you lose. With the foundation of our Luo clan, we don't need to rely on this tomb competition to fight for power." Luo Xian's beautiful eyes moved. She could not help but look at the sky and let out a faint sigh. Her heart was filled with regret. Why didn't he come to such a grand event? The 7 Tomb Guardians of the Luo clan leaped and flew to the periphery of the venue. When they saw that there were only 7 Tomb Guardians from the Luo clan participating in the competition, many old monsters said in surprise, "Strange. Didn't the Luo clan have 8 quotas? Why did they only send 7 Tomb Guardians?" Although there were a few Tomb Guardians who were absent in the previous competitions, there has never been a case where the Tomb Guardians of a 9th grade force were absent. Is this kid not going to participate in the competition? On the northern platform, the 9th elder Luo Shi sighed softly. Among the 8 Tomb Guardians of the Luo clan, Ning Fan was undoubtedly the strongest. If it was him, he might have the strength to fight Qin Shao. As for the others, they would probably suffer a miserable defeat in Qin Zhao's hands. Beside Luo Shi, the 8th elder Lei Jinshi narrowed his eyes and glanced at the 7 Tomb Guardians of the Luo clan. His lips curled into a sinister smile. Since Ning Fan didn't come, it's most likely that Qin Yangzi has already succeeded and killed him in the last level of the Fiend God realm. That kid is said to be the strongest person in the Luo clan. Once he dies, the Battle King will no longer have the chance to awaken. That's good. But Qin Yangzi has already been in the last 3 levels for 2 years. Why hasn't he come out yet? If it wasn't for the fact that his life token hasn't shattered, I would have thought that he had died at the bottom of the Fiend God realm. On the seats of the 4 Meridians sect, Li Xiaoxiao, who had been nibbling on the 8 treasures cake, suddenly froze, looking at the 7 tomb keepers of the Luo family with great surprise. Strange. She clearly heard that Ning Fan had become the gravekeeper of Luo family. Why didn't he come? If it was not because she heard that Ning Fan had become the tomb keeper of the Luo clan, she would not have come to watch the tomb competition. Sitting next to her was another female cultivator from the 4 Meridian sect. Like Li Xiaoxiao, she was also at the early stage crossing Truth Realm. This woman was called Yen Rong, and she had a cold and indifferent personality. However, she was one of the few good friends that Li Xiaoxiao had in the 4 Mystic sect. Yen Rong looked at the 7 tomb keepers of the Luo clan and asked curiously, "Sister Li, among the 7 tomb keepers of the Luo clan, which one is the Casanova brother that you talk about every day?" "He doesn't seem to be here," Li Xiaoxiao said weakly. "He didn't come? Could it be that he's afraid of losing in the tomb competition, so he's hiding and not daring to show his face? After all, your Casanova brother is just an intermediate stage ghost profound realm expert, and the opponent of the Luo clan is Qin Shao." Unfortunately, among the 7 tomb keepers of the Luo clan, the one with the highest cultivation base is just Du Zhen, who hasn't stabilized his cultivation base yet. If nothing unexpected happens, I'm afraid all 7 of them will be defeated by Qin Shao alone. Yen Rong's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Shao, who was standing at the center of the venue. Given her cold personality, she would rarely be kind to a male cultivator who was at the same level as her, but this Qin Shao was worthy of her special treatment. Nonsense. In my Casanova Brothers dictionary, there's no such thing as fear. Even when his cultivation base was still low, he dared to go against me. He has never been afraid of anything. He must have been delayed by something since he didn't come. His strength can't be measured by the standard of ordinary people. Although he's only an intermediate stage ghost profound realm, he might not lose to that Chen Pao if he enters the arena. Li Xiaoxiao said indignantly. It's not Chen Pao, it's Chen Xiao. Yen Rong burst into laughter. A moment later, she revealed a cold expression and said indifferently. Your Casanova brother is only an intermediate stage ghost profound realm expert. No matter how powerful he is, he can't be a match for Chen Xiao. This is the reality. Even if he enters the arena, I don't think he has the slightest chance of winning against Chen Xiao. Humph. My Casanova brother is indeed powerful. He won't lose to that Chen Pao. Li Xiaoxiao glared at Yen Rong angrily and fiercely took a big bite of the 8 treasures cake. She thought, why isn't Ning Fan here yet? Hurry up and defeat that Chen Pao, so that Yen Rong can see how powerful her Casanova brother is. On the seats of the 4 pavilions, the little demoness was sitting in front of everyone. Her black gem-like eyes were staring at the 7 tomb keepers of the Luo clan with a trace of worry. She had received the news that Ning Fan was already a tomb keeper of the Luo clan and would represent the Luo clan to participate in the tomb competition. However, he actually didn't come. With his personality, once he has decided to do something, he certainly won't give up halfway. Is it because he has no intention to participate in the tomb competition? Or did something unexpected happen and he can't make it in time? I heard that he has entered the last 3 levels of the Divine Tomb and hasn't returned yet. I hope nothing bad has happened to him. Miss seems to be overly concerned about the tomb keeper of the Luo clan who hasn't arrived yet. First, you ordered me to investigate this person's current situation, then you ordered me to secretly take care of the spirit platform star that this person is in charge of. You even ordered me to help this person gather information about Lightning Emperor Tai Su. If I may be so bold to ask, could it be that Miss has fallen in love with this person? A slightly unfriendly voice suddenly came from behind the little demoness. It was a half-step divine void realm elder with the surname Lu. He was carrying 3 long swords on his back. His body was surrounded by sharp sword qi. His expression was harsh and merciless. He was sent by the Void Sovereign to protect the little demoness. Elder Lu, why are you joking? Given my identity, do I have the qualification to fall in love with anyone? The little demoness said with a smile. Although she was smiling, there was a hint of self-mockery and bitterness in her heart. It's great that Miss can recognize your identity. As a sacrificial offering, you must destroy your emotions and nature to maintain the purity of your Tao heart. If the Void Sovereign knows that you have fallen in love with this man, I'm afraid he will immediately send someone to kill you. I'm afraid that you, as a sacrificial offering, will come to an end. You won't be able to escape death. As for the Xiao clan behind you, I'm afraid that they will also cause a huge disaster because of your impulsiveness. Elder Lu said coldly. There's no need for Elder Lu to remind me. I can recognize my identity. The little demoness was still smiling. No change in her emotions could be seen. However, she had already clenched her fists that were hidden in her sleeves. Her fingernails pierced into her palms. Although it was painful, it could remind her to stay calm. Ning Fan, do you know that when I was at the Li Hen Mountain that year, I saw you risking your life to lay out a void realm grand formation with a mere harmonious spirit cultivation base? You disregarded everything and went against fate. Not everyone can fight against fate like you. You can, but I can't. Initially, I wanted to give you a gift during the grand competition. But now, it seems like I can't give it to you for the time being. The little demoness sighed softly. There was a jade slip of information hidden in her sleeves. In that jade slip, the little demoness had used countless forces to secretly gather detailed information for Ning Fan, all the information about Lightning Emperor Tai Su. On the eastern seats, the old ancestor of the ghost weapon sect was holding a storage pouch. He was going to give it to one of the tomb keepers of the Luo clan. But when he saw that there were only 7 tomb keepers of the Luo clan and Ning Fan wasn't here, his eyes immediately turned serious and he sat back down. The star-defying demonic armor has been refined, but little friend Ning isn't here. This old man has specially come here to deliver this armor to him. Did I come here for nothing? The old ancestor of the ghost weapons sect said with slight regret. Dong dong dong. All of a sudden, the sound of the drums became louder, as if it was urging the tomb keepers of the Luo clan to quickly get on the stage and fight Chen Xiao. Chen Zhao's expression was cold. His eyes swept across the 7 tomb keepers of the Luo clan outside the venue and said arrogantly, "Who among you wants to go first?" Luo Xian took a step forward and was about to fight Chen Xiao. Wang Meng was also rubbing his palms, eager to fight Chen Xiao. However, Luo Xiao jumped to the center of the venue before everyone else. His eyes were filled with burning battle intent. He cupped his fists at Chen Xiao and said, "Luo Xiao of the Luo clan is here to learn from Brother Chen." "Luo Xiao, is it?" The corner of Chen Zhao's mouth curled upwards. His smile actually contained a hint of coldness. According to the information he had obtained, Luo Xiao had already cultivated the second transformation of the war god art. His combat strength could be ranked in the top 10 of the Luo clan. If this person is destroyed, the chance of the War King awakening will be even slimmer. The first person from the Luo clan is actually Luo Xiao? This person has already broken through to the late ghost profound realm and has cultivated the second transformation of the war art of the Luo clan. I'm afraid he won't be defeated so quickly even if he fights against Du Zhen. It won't be easy for Chen Xiao to defeat Luo Xiao. Many old monsters on the audience seats had this thought. In the next instant, their eyes changed. Luo Xiao had just formed hand seals with his 10 fingers and was about to cast the second transformation of the war god to fight Chen Xiao with all his might. However, before he could finish forming hand seals, Chen Xiao had already made his move. Without giving Luo Xiao a chance to attack with all his might, Chen Xiao grabbed the air with his 5 fingers. Immediately, 7 rays of golden light floated towards Luo Xiao like spirit snakes. It's the Chen clan's metal extinguishing technique. Chen Xiao must have cultivated this technique to the 7th realm. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to cast 7 rays of golden light. On the audience seats, many old monsters' Du Zhen's expression changed. They were extremely afraid of the Chen clan's metal extinguishing technique. Luo Xiao's expression changed drastically. Without saying a word, he took out a high-grade immortal sword and slashed at the 7 rays of golden light. At the same time, he retreated and accelerated his hand seals. In a panic, he still managed to cast the second transformation of the war god's art. The quality of the high-grade flying sword was extraordinary. However, as soon as it was hit by the golden light, it immediately rusted and decayed at an extremely fast speed. Luo Xiao did not plan to block Chen Zhao's attack with a high-grade flying sword. Using the flying sword to buy some time, his black hair gradually turned blood red. Countless blood-red scales grew on his body, and a pair of blood-red bull horns grew on his head. In just a few breaths, his physical strength skyrocketed to the peak of the 7th slash of the celestial physique. Even the aura of an ordinary peak ghost mystic realm cultivator was not as powerful as Luo Xiao's when he cultivated both physical and magical techniques. Divine War Dao, Battle King's Halberd. Luo Xiao roared. Suddenly, the blood-red light turned into a red crystal trident. He threw it out. Countless thunderous roars instantly resounded between heaven and earth. This attack was infinitely close to the power of Du Zhen's attack. The 7 rays of golden light collided with the Battle King's halberd fiercely. The roars were endless. Immediately, 3 rays of golden light were directly shattered. The remaining 4 rays of golden light were like spiritual snakes, entangling the body of the halberd. As Chen Zhao's hand seals changed again, countless bloody rusts immediately appeared on the Battle King's halberd. Then, it instantly decayed into ashes. Oh no! Luo Xiao was shocked. He immediately retreated and summoned his spirit armor at the same time to protect himself. After the 4 rays of golden light destroyed the Battle King's halberd, they immediately rushed toward Luo Xiao's face. However, with a flash of golden light, they landed on Luo Xiao's spirit armor in an instant. The spirit armor instantly decayed into ashes, but the power of the golden light did not diminish. It continued to hit Luo Xiao's chest. Luo Xiao immediately spat out blood and was sent flying. Large patches of rust appeared on his chest. Luo Xiao has lost. The sixth patriarch of the Luo clan sighed slightly. He had already expected this result. However, a moment later, he suddenly revealed an extremely shocked and angry expression. He had expected Luo Xiao to lose, but he did not expect Qin Xiao to be so ruthless. Explode! Qin Xiao changed his hand seals and shouted a word coldly. Immediately, 4 rays of golden light exploded in Luo Xiao's body. A destructive decaying force immediately wreaked havoc in Luo Xiao's body. In just an instant, Luo Xiao, who had just stabilized his footing, exploded into countless pieces of flesh and blood. Luo Xiao's primordial spirit carried the storage bag and escaped from his body in anger. Then, he turned around and fled out of the venue. Qin Xiao sneered. He moved his body and blocked Luo Xiao's path of retreat. Then, he raised his hand and another 7 rays of golden light flew toward Luo Xiao. He wanted to kill Luo Xiao right here and now. Is Qin Xiao crazy? How dare he kill a cultivator of the Luo clan? Countless old monsters in the audience were shocked. Although the tomb contest did not ask about life and death and killing was allowed, there were only a few people who dared to kill someone in the tomb contest. Especially Qin Xiao, a level 8 tomb keeper, who killed a level 9 tomb keeper. It was almost unheard of. If he killed Luo Xiao, it would mean that he had offended the Battle King Luo clan. The Chen clan's foundation was far inferior to the Luo clans, but he dared to kill Luo Xiao. Naturally, many people were shocked. Oh no! 9th Elder Luo Shi immediately raised his hand and tried to save Luo Xiao when he saw Luo Xiao's life hanging by a thread. Lei Jinshi, the 8th Elder, sneered as he waved his hand in front of Luo Shi, stopping him from making a move. 9th Elder, have you forgotten the rules of the tomb contest? No one is allowed to interfere with the tomb contest. Have you forgotten that? Luo Shi did not have time to make a move. On the other side, the 6th Elder of the Luo clan did not have time to make a move either. Another person appeared in front of him. It was the Qin clan's patriarch, Qin Xian. Is the Qin clan determined to be enemies with the Luo clan? The 6th Elder of the Luo clan said angrily. Ha, so what? Qin Xian sneered. In the center of the venue, 7 rays of golden light slashed down. Luo Xiao's primordial spirit was severely injured and almost died under the golden light. Fortunately, Luo Xiao had obtained a life-saving jade talisman from a ruin and refined it into his primordial spirit. Just as his primordial spirit was about to be destroyed, the jade talisman suddenly shone with divine light and forced the 7 rays of golden light to retreat. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Luo Xiao's primordial spirit flashed and directly escaped to the periphery of the venue. Once he left the periphery, it meant that he had given up. However, once he reached the periphery, Qin Xiao could no longer use the tomb contest's rules to kill him. Once he left the periphery, the Luo clan cultivators could interfere with the battle. Humph, you run fast. Qin Xiao snorted coldly. He felt that he had lost face when he failed to kill Luo Xiao despite his cultivation base. However, on second thought, Luo Xiao had suffered such heavy injuries. It was impossible for him to cultivate the 3rd form of the battle art within 100 years, let alone the 4th form. In this way, Luo Xiao had no hope of saving the Battle King. According to the Qin clan's intelligence, the Battle King would definitely die after 100 years. Severely injuring Luo Xiao was enough. This boy did well. The 8th Elder nodded with satisfaction. He did not care about falling out with Luo Shi. He was not afraid of the Luo clan without the Battle King. He was not afraid of offending them. Qin Xiao wins this battle. The next tomb keeper of the Luo clan, step forward. The elder who presided over the tomb contest, Zhao Mingde, announced calmly. As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Zhao's gaze swept over Luo Xiao and the other 6 tomb keepers of the Luo clan. He said coldly, "Who's next?" He had already obtained the approval of the 8th Elder and Qin Xian's instructions. In this battle, he must destroy all the tomb keepers without mercy. Even if he had to break off relations with the Luo clan, he was not afraid because behind him stood the 8th Elder, Lei Jinshi. Chapter 8:38. This Qin Shao is very powerful. Luo Shao, who had opened the second transformation of the war god, was already very close to the Dujin realm, but he could only hold on for a few breaths and was almost killed by him. Chen Zhao's strength is too strong. I'm afraid there are only a few people in the early Dujin realm who can be Chen Zhao's opponent. In the audience seats, many old monsters revealed a surprised expression. This person dares to injure a cultivator of the Luo clan in public and become enemies with the Luo clan. The 8th elder has always been behind the Qin clan, and the 8th elder has always been at odds with the Luo clan. Without the approval of the 8th elder, even if Qin Shao has the guts, he wouldn't dare to completely break off the relationship with the Luo clan. There were also some old monsters who had seen through the mystery and vaguely looked at the 8th elder Lei Jinshi. Lei Jinshi smiled coldly. It was not a secret in the eastern Ming province that he was at odds with the Luo clan. Even if everyone guessed that he was deliberately dealing with the Luo clan, so what? Chen Shao did not violate the rules of the tomb competition by severely injuring Luo Shao. It was impossible for others to find fault with him. Lei Jinshi, don't go too far. All these years, the guest elders of the Luo clan have been plotted against. Do you think this old man doesn't know that all these were done by you? Now, you are actually scheming to deal with a few of my Luo family's younger generation. Acting like this, are you worthy of your identity as the 8th elder of the Godly Void Pavilion? Don't you feel ashamed? Luo Shi glared at Lei Jinshi and said in a low voice. So what if I did it? As long as I can stop Luo Hu from awakening, this old man doesn't mind losing some face. Lei Jinshi sneered and said, then ignored Luo Shi's anger. Although the others couldn't hear what Luo Shi and Lei Jinshi said, they could see that there was an irreparable crack between the two. On the battlefield, the sound of the war drum became urgent again, as if it was urging the tomb guards of the Luo clan to quickly go up to the stage to fight. Luo Shao, who was seriously injured and only had his primordial spirit left, had already returned to the audience seats. The 6th ancestor of the Luo clan personally helped to suppress his injury. Outside the battlefield, there were only 6 tomb guards of the Luo clan left. Apart from Luo Xian and Wang Meng, the other 4 were frightened and did not have the courage to go up to fight Qin Shao. The strength and ruthlessness that Qin Shao displayed when he heavily injured Luo Shao had shocked the 4 tomb keepers. Even Wang Meng, who had broken through to the crossing reality realm, did not dare to fight against Luo Shao when he saw how powerful and cruel Luo Shao was. Luo Xian bit her lips. With her cultivation, she was no match for Qin Shao. Chen Zhao's killing intent towards the Luo family's tomb keeper was practically unconcealed. If one's strength was insufficient, going up to fight him would only be courting death. Luo Shao was lucky enough to escape this calamity, but the others might not be lucky enough to escape with their lives. It wasn't a smart move to accept the challenge. The smart move was to forfeit and escape from the confrontation with Qin Shao. It seems that no one from the Luo family dares to go up and fight. Are they planning to forfeit? If Luo Huan was still alive and saw how useless and cowardly his fellow cultivators were, he would definitely be very disappointed. How about I tell you a secret? The truth is, I was the one who killed Luo Huan. Chen Shao chuckled darkly, then sent a voice transmission to the 6 gravekeepers. Hearing that Luo Huan was killed by Qin Shao, Luo Xian's pretty face immediately turned pale. Even Wang Meng, who was afraid of fighting, revealed a faint look of anger. The other 4 were shocked by Qin Zhao's words and couldn't calm down for a long time. Luo Huan was Luo Xian's elder brother. He was the most powerful cultivator in the Luo family 1,000 years ago. When this person's bone age was 150,000, he had broken through to the early crossing truth realm and was almost at the 3rd transformation of the combat art. The Luo family had high hopes for this person and regarded him as the most promising person in the Luo family to reach the 4th transformation. However, just before he reached the 3rd transformation, he was assassinated outside the Eastern Sea Star Field when he went out to visit a friend. His corpse was never found. The murderer was unknown. However, all the higher-ups of the Luo family knew that this matter was definitely related to the 8th elder, Lei Jinshi. It's you? You killed my elder brother? Luo Xian's beautiful eyes were filled with shock, grief, and hatred. When Qin Shao patted his storage pouch and took out a headless puppet, the grief and hatred in Luo Xian's heart reached its peak. The headless puppet was refined from the headless corpse of a cultivator from the Crossing Truth realm. Although the puppet was headless, its aura was very familiar to Luo Xian. It was her elder brother, Luo Huan. Not only did Luo Huan die in the hands of Qin Shao, his corpse was also refined into a puppet that was close to the cultivation of the Crossing Truth realm. I want to avenge my elder brother. Luo Xian, who was about to give up and avoid the battle, suddenly had a monstrous battle intent in her eyes. She took a step forward, wanting to fight Qin Shao to death. Even if she couldn't defeat Qin Shao, she still wanted to take back her elder brother's corpse. However, before Luo Xian could step onto the battle stage, Wang Meng had already leaped onto the stage before her. Finally, someone from the Luo family is willing to accept death. Qin Shao sneered. The reason he took out the headless puppet was to provoke the tomb keeper of the Luo family to accept the battle, not giving him the chance to give up. Waving his hand to keep the puppet, Qin Shao stomped on the ground and immediately turned into a golden shadow, rushing towards Wang Meng. He raised his hand and pointed at Wang Meng. Another 7 rays of golden light flew towards Wang Meng's face like spiritual snakes. Wang Meng clenched his fists tightly. Although he was cowardly and selfish by nature, he also had an inviolable reverse scale. Luo Huan was the only reverse scale in Wang Meng's life. He was also his only good friend. Give me back brother Luo Huan's corpse. The battle intent in Wang Meng's eyes burned fiercely. His body shone with blood-red light and immediately turned into the form of a bull with blood-red hair and horns. Impressively, he had displayed the second transformation of the battle art. At this moment, he had fused his Dharma body and his combat strength was almost at the upper middle level of the early Crossing Truth realm. Behind him, the phantom of an 8-armed devil god suddenly appeared. At the same time, Wang Meng stomped on the ground and turned into a blood-red rainbow, rushing towards Qin Shao. Although his aura was still weaker than Qin Shao's, it wasn't much weaker. He raised his hand and punched, slightly dispersing the 7 rays of golden light from Qin Shao. The huge force, whether it was Qin Shao or Wang Meng, were both pushed back by the rebounding force. Qin Zhao's eyes darkened. He didn't expect that his golden annihilation art would suffer a little in Wang Meng's hands. Wang Meng's eyes were shocked. The moment he hit the golden light, he already had a bad feeling. He had only taken 1 hit from the 7 rays of golden light, but the 8-armed devil god behind him had already rusted and cracked. Immediately, a wave of exclamations came from the audience. This person has the 8 extremities combat body? The 8 extremities combat body that the battle shadow is indestructible? But it's a pity that this person's cultivation is weaker than Qin Shao. In just 1 exchange, the battle shadow has already cracked and rusted. I'm afraid that after a few more rounds, the battle shadow will completely collapse. At that time, this person will no longer be a match for Qin Shao. Just as the crowd was discussing, thousands of rays of golden light suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. The golden light was released by Qin Shao. The 8 extremities combat body isn't weak, but it may not be a match for my golden sun body. Dao image appear. Qin Shao suddenly shouted. In the sky behind him, countless rays of golden light immediately condensed into the shadow of a golden sun that was tens of thousands of feet wide. The moment the shadow appeared, a suit of golden armor suddenly appeared on his body. The divine light shocked the world, as if a god had descended to the mortal world. Qin Shao drew a circle with his hands, and a golden mirror gradually appeared in front of his chest. He raised the mirror high and shone it at Wang Meng. The momentum of heaven and earth stagnated. In the next instant, with Wang Meng as the center, the area within a radius of 10,000 feet was immediately drowned by 9 layers of golden waves. In the center of the waves, the golden shadow of the sun hung high in the sky, and countless golden petals fell. Between the sea and the sun, the shadow of immortal mountains suddenly appeared. Wang Meng, who was in the center of the many strange phenomena, did not have time to react. His feet had already sunk deep into the golden sea, and the eight-armed devil god was rapidly melting at a speed visible to the naked eye. These strange phenomena contained indescribable divine powers. Any cultivator who was immersed in the strange phenomena, unless their cultivation was higher than the caster, would not be able to break free from the restraint of the strange phenomena. They could only melt within the strange phenomena. Only a few people knew what kind of divine power this strange phenomenon was, but there were some old monsters who recognized the origin of this strange phenomenon. This is the Tao image of the heaven illuminating the sea. This Tao image is extremely rare, and it is said that only cultivators with the golden sun body can cultivate it. In that case, Chen Shao actually has the golden sun body. As Chen Shao raised the mirror high up, the power of the Tao image was immediately activated to the extreme. Wang Meng was shocked. He wanted to rush out of the attack range of the strange phenomena, but he found it impossible to do so. He felt like his feet were stuck in the golden sea, and he had lost all his strength. It was extremely difficult for him to even raise his arms. Accompanied by the falling golden petals, his eight-armed devil god was about to completely collapse. Once the devil god collapsed, his body would also collapse. Along with the falling petals, he would completely melt. Wang Meng struggled bitterly, but he still couldn't get out of the range of the strange phenomena. He felt that death was approaching him step by step, and he gradually understood that if he didn't do anything he would directly die under Chen Zhao's divine power. He didn't want to admit it, but he had to admit that Chen Zhao's strength far exceeded his. Gritting his teeth, Wang Meng revealed a determined look and exploded the eight-armed devil god that was about to melt. The power of the devil god's self-explosion immediately blasted a path in the golden sea. Under the backlash, Wang Meng's body immediately suffered extremely serious injuries, but without any hesitation he directly rushed out of the battle arena. Just as he rushed out of the battle arena, Chen Shao sneered and pointed at the mirror that was hanging high above his head. Wang Meng, who had already escaped out of the battle arena, was immediately wrapped up by countless golden threads, and returned to the battle arena. Not good. Wang Meng was shocked, and once again fell into the layers of attacks of the Tao image. This time, he had lost the protection of the eight-armed devil god, and the moment he returned to the Tao image, his body immediately began to melt silently. A sense of crisis immediately surged in his heart, and he was afraid that in less than 10 breaths, he would die in this Tao image. There are countless heavenly illuminating sea flowers. I will die, I will die. Presumptuous. Wang Meng had clearly left the battle arena, but this kid still dared to forcefully pull him back into the arena to attack. The sixth ancestor of the Luo clan immediately flew into a rage, and wanted to save Wang Meng. Luo Shi's eyes were also burning with anger, and without saying anything he wanted to release his Tao sense to save Wang Meng. Chen Shao had violated the rules of the tomb competition first, so it was not against the rules for the two of them to save Wang Meng. However, before the two of them could save Wang Meng, an extremely domineering voice of a young man suddenly resounded between the heaven and earth, and forcibly dispelled the thought of helping. Chen Shao, is it? You have crossed the line. The owner of the voice only had the aura of a peak spirit profound realm expert. But as soon as his voice came out, it immediately blended with the rain and mist, causing his voice to reverberate in the sky for a long time, merging with the heaven and earth bit by bit, without end. Only a voice that seemed to carry endless rain suddenly fell from the sky, and turned into countless thunderous echoes, exploding in Chen Zhao's ears. Chen Shao was originally grinning coldly, and wholeheartedly focused on killing Wang Meng. Suddenly, his eardrums rumbled violently, and in a moment of absent-mindedness, the Tao image actually loosened. Wang Meng immediately felt his body relax, and in a great joy he seized the opportunity to break free from the Tao image, and escaped to the periphery of the battle arena again. He raised his head to look at the vast starry sky, and looked in the direction of the divine space star, his eyes filled with gratitude. If the voice did not merge with the heaven and earth, he would definitely not be able to escape from Chen Zhao's murderous calamity so easily. The person who spoke, he couldn't be more familiar. It was the person whom he had regarded as his master 10 years ago. At this moment, Wang Meng's sea of consciousness kept sending out a response, and that response came from the mental seal. He could feel that the person who planted the mental seal on him was madly rushing here. At this moment, Lei Jinshi, who had been sneering proudly, also suddenly sensed something. His response was different from Wang Meng's. At this moment, he sensed that all the connection between him and Qin Yangzi had disappeared. Qin Yangzi was completely dead. His primordial spirit was obliterated by someone. What kind of divine ability is this? It's not a verbal seal, but it can make the voice blend with the rain and mist, and blend with the heaven and earth, shocking people. The person who spoke is undoubtedly a peak ghost mystic. A peak ghost mystic actually has such a strange divine ability. Who is this person? Countless exclamations of bewilderment came from the spectator stands in all directions. In the middle of the battle arena, Chen Xiao was furious, and he glared in the direction of the divine space star, and shouted coldly, "Who are you? A mere ghost mystic dares to stop me from killing someone? You're courting death. I will kill you with a slap." Just as Chen Xiao finished his sentence, his expression changed drastically. It wasn't just Chen Xiao, almost all the old monsters' divine wills swept in the direction of the divine space star, and their expressions changed drastically. It was the season when fog covered the eastern sea, and the starry sky was originally filled with dense rain and mist. However, at this moment, all the rain and mist that came from the direction of the divine space star in the divine space star suddenly split into two, and opened up a path, as if it was for people to pass through. On the bronze platform, all the cultivators whose cultivation was higher than Shikong looked up at the sky, and their eyes were filled with shock. Although they couldn't see the laws of Tao, they could vaguely sense that at this moment, the rain and mist laws of heaven and earth had changed slightly. And this change in the starry sky of rain and mist seemed to be instinctively welcoming the arrival of someone. Suddenly, the figure of a young man in snow-white robes appeared on the path of rain and mist, and there was a star twinkling between his eyebrows. This person stepped on the starry sky of the eastern sea, and walked towards the bronze platform from the direction of the divine tomb. His steps seemed slow, but with every step he took, he would directly teleport a great distance. His speed couldn't be said to be fast, but with every step he took, there was an indescribable mystery to it. It was as if with every careless lift of his foot, he could step on all the veins of the rain and mist laws of heaven and earth without the slightest error. After a few steps, this person directly appeared in the sky above the bronze platform, and his eyes flashed with a bone-chilling cold light. He directly descended towards the center of the battle arena. "Do you dare to say what you just said again?" This person only said one sentence, but it carried a monstrous murderous aura like that of a primordial beast, and suddenly formed boundless blood flames. The many strange phenomena in this place couldn't stop this person's descending figure at all. With the arrival of this person, the laws of heaven and earth suddenly deviated a little again. The burning murderous aura and blood flames around him suddenly turned into a giant blood-red hand, which tore at the heaven-illuminating ocean image that Chen Xiao was so proud of. It was impossible to describe the accuracy and mystery of this tearing. Just one tear immediately caused Chen Xiao's Tao image to collapse. It was a collapse that originated from the level of the laws of the Tao. Once it appeared, it immediately spread crazily, and it was not something that Chen Xiao could stop at all. In one breath, the golden sea scattered. In 2 breaths, the treasure mirror was broken. In 3 breaths, the Tao image was destroyed. Chen Xiao felt as if his chest had been hit hard, and as his Tao image was broken, he immediately suffered an extremely heavy backlash, and he continuously retreated in the battle arena, looking at the person in disbelief. The person's voice blended into the rain and mist, and it echoed in the sky again and again, carrying with it the power of heaven, and lingered for a long time. Every time it reverberated, the heavenly might contained within the sound would multiply. "Do you dare to say what you just said again? Do you dare? Do you dare?" The repeated echoes once again exploded in Chen Xiao's ears, almost shattering his sea of consciousness. Even though he knew that the person who came was a ghost profound realm cultivator, Chen Xiao's eyes still revealed fear. Under the heavenly might of the person who came, His Tao heart had already cracked and he was filled with fear. Without any reason, Chen Zhao's shoulders began to tremble uncontrollably. Looking at the white-robed young man who landed on the battle arena 100 zhang away from him, Chen Zhao instinctively took a few steps back. Even though he had yet to figure out who the person was, he was already subconsciously fearful of this person like a tiger. Who else could this white-robed young man who came late be other than Ning Fan? Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light. During his journey from the divine tomb to this place, he had secretly used the heaven-peering rain technique along the way. With the help of the rain and mist that filled the starry sky, he paid close attention to everything that was happening in this place. He had seen how Luo Zhao's physical body was destroyed. He had also seen how Wang Meng had escaped from the battle arena, but Chen Zhao broke the rules and launched a sneak attack on him. After knowing that the Chen family had sent Du Zhen to hunt him down, Ning Fan had included the Chen family in his list of enemies. Today, the enmity between Ning Fan and the Chen family had deepened. Luo Xiao was half a friend to him while Wang Meng was half a servant to him. How could a mere Chen Zhao harm his people? Those who kill will always be killed by others. Since this Chen Zhao had the guts to kill someone, he should also have the guts to accept the fate of being killed as well. Previously, this Chen Zhao even said that he wanted to hinder me. Ning Fan really wanted to see who would be the one who would be killed in the end. A trace of killing intent flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. At the next moment, the sky above the bronze platform immediately fell into darkness. The darkness spread all the way, as if it could devour all the light in the world. In this endless darkness, 7 stars of the Big Dipper suddenly appeared and hung high in the sky. Under the light of the Big Dipper, Ning Fan's eyes turned sharp. His eyes were filled with the will to cling to the heavens. He suddenly waved his right hand forward. Then he pointed his index finger, middle finger and ring finger out. After that, his right hand turned into a palm and pressed forward. Devil sense, Tao sense and all kinds of divine abilities immediately condensed into a black and white palm imprint that blotted out the sky. The power of heaven and earth gathered madly, causing the rain and mist in the starry sky to tremble and distort violently. At this moment, a vast and mighty heaven's might descended upon heaven and earth. It was as if there was only this palm imprint left in the world. Ning Fan, who made this palm imprint, felt as if he was in control of the entire heavens at this moment. Chen Zhao's eyes were dull. Before he could react, the palm imprint pressed down like the heaven and earth. What kind of divine ability is this? It actually has such a powerful heaven and earth might. I can't escape. I have to use all my strength to deal with it. Otherwise, I will certainly be killed by this palm imprint. Chen Zhao gritted his teeth and stomped on the ground. Immediately, 7 rays of golden light flew out from the ground and turned into 7,000 zhang golden dragons. They were not afraid of death and fiercely collided with the palm imprint. I can't be defeated. I can't escape. I can't hesitate. Otherwise, I will die. Chapter 839. The might of heaven and earth contained in that palm strike originated from Ning Fan's will of clinging to the heavens. It was none other than the divine ability he created himself, Heaven-Holding Seal. Although it was only one palm strike, it contained 7 layers of palm force as one. The palm wind seemed to have turned into 7 layers of ocean waves, descending from the sky in an endless stream. As soon as Ning Fan made his move, he displayed the Heaven-Holding Seal. His intention was to not give Chen Zhao any chance to escape. He swore to kill him in the battle arena with a single palm strike. This palm strike was not only for revenge, but also to establish his might. Ning Fan wanted to let the Chen clan understand that the consequences of assassinating him was that they would not rest until one of them was dead. There was no possibility for them to mediate. The 7-headed golden dragon soared into the sky, and its momentum should have been extremely vast. However, under the suppression of the might of the palm print, it actually didn't have the slightest bit of momentum, and it seemed insignificant. However, the palm print fell fiercely, pressing down with the power of the sky collapsing. The 7 giant dragons that were thousands of feet long immediately shattered one after another, leaving only mournful wails echoing between heaven and earth. The heaven-holding seal's 7 layers of palm force had only been destroyed by the 7 heads. There were still 6 layers left. The 7 golden destruction giant dragons that Chen Xiao was proud of were supposed to be enough to suppress Du Zhen, who was at the same level as him. However, they could not withstand the destructive power of Ning Fan's palm. In the next instant, the palm print smashed heavily onto the arena. Chen Zhao's gaze shook. He only had time to let out a muffled groan before his figure was submerged in the whistling palm wind. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. With the place where Chen Xiao stood as the center, the entire dueling ground was swept by the palm wind, and it immediately showed signs of collapsing. The eyes of 4 old monsters at the early stage of crossing Truth Realm on the 4 high platforms immediately shook. They leaped up and guarded each side of the fighting field. The 4 of them were responsible for preventing the fluctuations of the battle from spreading out and affecting the cultivators in the spectator stands. Almost at the same time, the 4 of them simultaneously took out their magic treasures, and before the palm wind collapsed, they had already opened up a barrier. That barrier is fused with the magic power of the 4 people. There is almost no divine ability of the early stage of true crossing realm that can blast open the barrier. However, as soon as the palm wind swept out, countless cracks appeared on the barrier. After a breath's time, it collapsed with a thunderous sound. Along with the collapse of the barrier, the artificial nirvana immortal artifacts that the 4 of them withdrew were forcefully shattered into countless pieces by the winds of the palms at the same time. The remaining power of the palm wind hadn't dissipated yet. There were still 4 layers of palm force that struck fiercely in all directions. Immediately, the 4 Du Zhens were shaken to the point that they felt a sharp pain in their chests. They vomited blood and flew backward. Their eyes were filled with shock. The 4 cultivators at the early stage of the crossing Truth Realm joined hands, but they could only suppress the remaining power of the palm print. The palm wind gradually subsided, and the smoke and dust that filled the air finally dissipated bit by bit. At this moment, the battle arena had completely transformed into ruins, and there was an enormous palm print that was 30 kilometers long deeply sunken down on the collapsed arena. Ning Fan was standing at one end of the palm imprint. On the other end, there was a corpse lying in a pool of blood. It was none other than Chen Zhao's corpse. At this moment, Chen Zhao's entire body had been smashed into a bloody pulp by the palm print. Even his primordial spirit had perished in the palm print. Previously, Chen Xiao was clamoring to kill Ning Fan with a slap. In the end, he was the one who humiliated himself and was killed by Ning Fan with a single slap. Ning Fan did not need the gold sun physique to replenish the steel spirit of the steel of sun and moon. He did not need Chen Zhao's primordial spirit to display the spirit blast technique. All he wanted was for Chen Xiao to die without an intact corpse. Then, he would use this scene to establish his devil prestige. Countless gasps could be heard from the surrounding platforms, as well as countless cries of alarm from the patriarchs. Who is this man? He's only at the peak of the ghost profound realm, but he was able to display such a terrifying palm print. He killed Chen Xiao with a single slap and repelled 4 crossing truth experts at the same time. It's him. He's Devil Monarch Qian Qiu, Ning Fan. He's the inheritor of the Soul Blast technique. He's the disciple of the Slaughter Palace who defeated all the geniuses of the Eastern Heavens in the last competition. He's actually Devil Monarch Qian Qiu? Isn't Devil Monarch Qian Qiu only at the first step of the Slaughter Palace? When did he advance to the second step? So he's Devil Monarch Qian Qiu? I've heard some rumors that he has become a guest of the Luo clan, and he even won a place as the grave guardian of the Luo clan. I'm sure he's the 8th person who was absent from the Luo clan. Naturally, he's here today to participate in the grave competition. Even those who were familiar with Ning Fan were shocked by the strength that he had displayed. Little Demoness' beautiful eyes were filled with surprise at first, then it was filled with splendor. Little Fan's palm print technique has become even more powerful. Last time, he killed Sun Yan. This time, it's Chen Xiao. She murmured in her heart. When the chaos in Eastern Heaven ended, Ning Fan had just broken through to the intermediate ghost profound realm not long ago. In just a dozen years, Ning Fan had advanced 2 levels, reaching the peak of the ghost profound realm. Little Demoness was ashamed of her inferiority in this cultivation speed. The young man of Yu Country had already reached a position that she had to look up to. Scenes of the past flashed in her mind. Suddenly, she grinned, but the smile was so bright that it went straight to the bottom of her eyes. She squinted her eyes and stretched her smooth palm into her sleeve, gently stroking the jade slip. Her heart rippled slightly. I'll give him this jade slip after the first round of the competition. I hope it'll be useful to him. Li Xiaoxiao put down the 8 treasures cake, stood up abruptly, pointed at Ning Fan, and said to Yen Rong excitedly, "Little Rong Rong, he's my brother Casanova. Look, he killed Chen Pao with a single palm. Isn't he powerful? Isn't he handsome?" Truth be told, Li Xiaoxiao herself was also surprised by Ning Fan's strength. At this moment, Yen Rong's mouth was wide open, and she couldn't close it. She couldn't imagine that the brother Casanova that Li Xiaoxiao talked about every day was a heaven-defying profound ghost profound realm expert who could kill an early true enlightenment realm expert with a single palm strike. And Chen Xiao, whom she thought highly of, couldn't even withstand a single strike from Ning Fan. How can there be such a powerful profound ghost profound realm expert in this world? Yen Rong's face was slightly pale. She was frightened by Ning Fan's palm strike. Ning Fan was holding a storage pouch in his hand. That storage pouch was Qin Zhao's belongings. Ning Fan didn't care about the discussions of the crowd. His eyes swept across the tomb keepers of Luo clan, then he walked out of the arena and handed Qin Zhao's storage pouch to Wang Meng and Luo Xian. "Take it." It was a simple sentence without any superfluous words. But in Wang Meng's ears, it immediately turned into blood rushing to his heart. For the first time in his life, he looked at Ning Fan with sincere gratitude. He cupped his fists and bowed to Ning Fan. "Thank you very much." Luo Xian's beautiful eyes became moist at this moment. When she looked at Ning Fan again, she gradually felt an indescribable emotion. Luo Xian and Wang Meng understood that Ning Fan gave them this storage pouch to return a headless corpse. The owner of the corpse was called Luo Huan. Both of them had a good relationship with the corpse. Luo Xian took the storage pouch and held it in front of her heart. All of a sudden, she gritted her teeth and said to Ning Fan in a low voice, "I will remember today's kindness. I will definitely repay it in the future." "No need." Ning Fan said indifferently. He turned around and returned to the center of the arena. He cupped his fists towards Zhao Mingda's direction. "The tomb keeper of Luo clan, Ning Fan, is here to participate in the battle." As soon as he finished speaking, his eyes shifted to the seats of Qin clan and said coldly, "Qin Xiao is dead. The next tomb keeper of Qin clan, come and fight me." The entire battle arena was in dead silence. Most of the old monsters were still shocked by Ning Fan's sudden appearance. They were still immersed in the powerful palm imprint that Ning Fan used to kill Qin Xiao. They had yet to regain their senses. When the cultivators of Qin clan saw Ning Fan's gaze, they felt a chill down their spines. Only Qin Xian's eyes were burning with the flames of hatred as he glared at Ning Fan. He hated the fact that he could not rush forward and kill Ning Fan immediately to avenge his son. However, the 6th ancestor of the Luo clan was standing in front of him, blocking his way. "Ji Hanzi, you can stop me now, but you can't stop me forever. This man killed my son. He must die. Unless you and the other cultivators of Luo clan stay close to him and protect him, I will kill him with my own hands. I will." Who can tell what will happen in the future? But today, in front of my Luo clan, you can forget about hurting him. Moreover, even if my Luo clan doesn't take action, the rules of the battle will not allow an outsider like you to attack a tomb keeper. You'd better think about how to get these tomb keepers who are afraid of death to take the field. The 6th ancestor of Luo clan harumphed disdainfully. Chen Xian's expression immediately turned ugly. Other than Qin Xiao, there were 4 other tomb keepers in the Chen clan. Unfortunately, they were not as strong as Qin Xiao. The strongest among them was only a peak ghost profound realm cultivator. At this moment, the 4 of them were terrified. None of them dared to step forward and accept the challenge. Ning Fan was here. He was the 8th tomb keeper of Luo clan. He was a ruthless man who killed Chen Xiao with a single palm. Who among the tomb keepers of Chen clan would dare to step forward and court death? Can't they see the cold light in Ning Fan's eyes? The way Ning Fan looked at the cultivators of Chen clan was like he was looking at his mortal enemy. All of you, go up and fight this man. Even if you can't defeat him, I will give you a life-saving item. Kill him. Kill him. I will give 10 crossing truth cauldrons to whoever kills him. As soon as Qin Xian finished speaking, he immediately gave each of them a storage pouch. The 4 of them scanned the storage pouches with their spirit sense. All of them were surprised and delighted at the same time. Each of the 4 storage pouches contained an offensive jade slip which was personally refined by Qin Xian. The lowest was a late crossing truth attack jade slip. The highest was even an early void shedding attack jade slip. Chen Xian had spent a lot of effort to create these jade slips recently. In order to create these jade slips, he even wasted a few secret treasures that had been used by ancient gods. Therefore, these offensive jade slips were extraordinary. Every single one of them contained an attack from an ancient god. Initially, Chen Xian wanted to give these jade slips to Chen Xiao as a gift after he obtained an outstanding ranking in the grand competition. However, he did not expect that Chen Xiao would actually die in the grand competition. Thus, these jade slips had become an item for revenge. With these jade slips, the 4 tomb keepers' confidence in killing Ning Fan was greatly boosted. Moreover, the person who kills Ning Fan would also be rewarded with 10 crossing truth cauldrons. The 4 of them began to breathe heavily. When they looked at Ning Fan again, their eyes were filled with killing intent. After the 4 of them, a middle-aged man at the mid-ghost profound realm leaped down from the high platform and arrived at the center of the battle stage. He squinted his eyes and said with a smile, "I'm the tomb keeper of the Qin family, Chen Kun. I'd like to learn from you." Chen Kun's words were pleasant to the ear and his expression was kind. He acted as if he wanted to have a fair fight with Ning Fan. As soon as his voice fell, he immediately took out the offensive jade slip that Qin Xian gave him and crushed it. His eyes were filled with ferocity. His kindness was fake. It was just a way to lower Ning Fan's guard. The moment the jade slip was crushed, a giant shadow of an ancient god appeared behind Qin Kun. The chi of the giant shadow was comparable to a late crossing truth expert. Didn't the competition forbid the use of offensive jade slips, immortal talismans, puppets and other auxiliary items? The cultivators of the Chen family are really bold to openly violate the rules of the competition. There's no need to ask. It must be the order of the Chen family. The Chen family's leader wants to kill Ning Fan by violating the rules of the competition. The shadow of an ancient god. This jade slip actually contains the attack of an ancient god. The roar of an ancient god will shatter a star and kill a man. This shadow is going to display the divine ability of a roar. Not good. Under the exclamations of many old monsters on the 4 high platforms, the giant shadow suddenly opened its mouth and roared towards the sky. There were 6 immemorial divine stars on the glabella of the ancient god shadow, but the moment the roar came out, the first of the 6 divine stars shattered. The moment the star shattered, the roar of the ancient god shadow seemed to have materialized. It emitted bursts of golden light and turned into a destructive sound circle that swept towards Ning Fan. Chen family, this is too much. It's fine if Chen Xiao violated the rules, but now, the second tomb keeper also violated the rules. Does he still have any respect for the 4 pavilions? What does he think of this tomb as? A place for revenge? Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed by your peers in the eastern sky? It wasn't just Luo Shi. Among the 9 divine void elders, almost all of them showed different degrees of dissatisfaction except for Lei Jinshi. Even Lei Jinshi knitted his brows. Lei Jinshi didn't care about Chen Zhao's life or death. To him, the entire Chen family was just a chess piece and Chen Xiao was insignificant. For Chen Xiao, the Chen family had once again violated the rules of the tomb competition. Even Lei Jinshi couldn't stand such behavior. He also wanted to kill Ning Fan because he wanted to destroy the hope of the Luo family to save the Battle King. However, he wouldn't choose to deal with a junior in public under the watchful eyes of so many people. If he wanted to kill Ning Fan, he could do it at any time? Wouldn't it be better to eliminate him secretly and keep the rumors to a minimum? Even if he wanted to take revenge, did he have to rush it? Why did he have to do it at such a time? Luo Shi suddenly stood up and waved his palm, trying to help Ning Fan block the roar of the ancient god. Even a late true crossing realm expert might not be able to withstand the power of the ancient god roar. Luo Shi didn't think that Ning Fan could withstand it. This time, although Lei Jinshi's expression was ugly, he didn't stop Luo Shi. However, before Luo Shi could act, the situation on the battlefield changed. Ning Fan didn't panic at all when facing the power of the ancient god's broken star roar. The shadow of a one-aperture ancient god No matter how high your cultivation base is, it's just a shadow. Collapse for me. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly emitted an indescribably powerful pressure. The pressure disappeared in a flash. Its speed was so fast that no one on the 4 high platforms could catch it. The pressure was only directed at the giant shadow of the ancient god. At the moment when the pressure was released, the giant shadow suddenly revealed a look of fear. The cultivation base of this giant shadow was at the late true crossing realm, which was much higher than Ning Fan. What he was afraid of was not Ning Fan's cultivation base. What he was afraid of was Ning Fan's identity. A 3-aperture ancient god. A 3-aperture ancient god was much higher than him. Fear rose in his heart. All the abilities of an ancient god were born from the heart. If the heart was fearful, the ability would be destroyed. Ning Fan pressed his 5 fingers and the golden sound hoops immediately collapsed uncontrollably. Along with the collapse of the sound hoops, the giant shadow of the ancient god also exploded amidst the terrified roar. The late true crossing realm jade slip that Chen Xian had painstakingly refined could not hurt Ning Fan at all. As for Chen Kun, who crushed the jade slip to attack Ning Fan, his eyes that were originally filled with ferocity were now filled with disbelief and fear. He had never thought that even a late true crossing realm jade slip couldn't kill Ning Fan. He wanted to run away. He regretted coming to the battlefield to fight Ning Fan, but it was already too late. Ning Fan's figure flashed and disappeared from his original spot. Alarm bells rang in Chen Kun's heart. The hair on his back stood up. A black golden sword light flashed in front of him, the second person. As soon as Ning Fan's cold voice entered his ears, he felt a sharp pain coming from the top of his head. He suddenly had a ridiculous feeling, as if the top of his head was split open. In the next moment, all his consciousness disappeared. As a matter of fact, his feeling was not wrong. His entire body had been split into 2 halves by Ning Fan's sword. His primordial spirit had also perished in the sword light. Holding the memory-severing Dao sword, Ning Fan stood beside Chen Kun's corpse and casually took away his storage pouch. The 3 qi-long black sword's baleful qi had yet to dissipate. His white robes were already stained with the enemy's blood, making it look like a blossoming blood plum. Ning Fan's eyes swept across the seats of the Chen clan. The expressions of the cultivators of the Chen clan changed drastically. The 3 tomb guardians of the Chen clan who were initially filled with confidence were now cowering. Impossible. This is a jade slip that I personally refined. Since I used an ancient divine magic treasure to refine it, the power of this jade slip has increased by 30%. How could it not kill a child like Chen Xiu? Chen Xian looked at the scene in disbelief. He could not understand why Ning Fan could withstand a late true crossing realm attack so easily. With a ruthless look in his eyes, Chen Xian immediately ordered one of the tomb guardians behind him. You go. Go and kill him. If you are afraid to fight, I can kill you with my palm right now. That tomb guardian immediately shuddered and cold sweat broke out from his body. He gritted his teeth and leaped down from the high platform. With a flash, he landed at the center of the battle arena. Just as he stood still and crushed the ancient divine jade slip, he lost all consciousness in the next moment. His head flew high up into the air while his physical body was slashed into minced meat by countless rays of sword light. The third tomb guardian of the Qin clan was at least a mid-ghost profound realm expert. As soon as he stepped onto the stage, he died. However, the ancient divine giant shadow that he released by crushing the jade slip still condensed in the end. As soon as it condensed, Ning Fan used the star-shattering roar without hesitation. However, just as the roar came out of its mouth, the giant shadow also revealed a look of terror in the next moment. However, Ning Fan's attack was as fast as lightning. As he pressed his 5 fingers together, this gigantic shadow similarly crumbled like the previous one. Next. Chapter 840. The chi of this collapsed ancient god's giant shadow was clearly comparable to the peak-crossing truth realm, which was far beyond Ning Fan. However, under Ning Fan's grasp, it completely collapsed without any resistance. Many of the old monsters were inwardly shocked. They speculated that Ning Fan must have used some kind of special technique which allowed him to break the ancient god's giant shadow so easily. However, no one was able to see through it. I can't see through it? If Ning Fan was still a one-orifice ancient god, some of them would be able to see through his ancient god heart force in front of countless old monsters. However, the current Ning Fan was already a 3-apertures ancient god. His ancient god heart force had already turned into a pool of clear water, leaving no trace to be traced. Unless they were also 3-apertured ancient gods, no one would be able to see through Ning Fan's identity. Chen Xian's knuckles cracked, his eyes filled with unwillingness. I can't kill him. Why can't I kill him? How could a mere spirit Xian disciple be able to resist the jade slip that he had personally refined? All of you, attack together. Chen Xian's eyes were ferocious, like a ferocious beast. With a wave of his hand, he tossed the last 2 tomb keepers of the Qin family onto the arena. Chen Xian seemed to have fallen into madness. Even if he had to violate the rules of the tomb competition, he still wanted to kill Ning Fan. Unfortunately, before the 2 tomb guardians of the Qin clan could stabilize their footing, Ning Fan had already waved his hand and summoned the memory-severing Dao sword. The sword light was dreamy and illusory. 108,000 illusory sword auras immediately swept out, forming a sword formation. The 2 tomb keepers of the Qin family only had time to let out a scream before they fell under the heavy sword shadows. Their storage pouches along with the jade slips that they had fallen into Ning Fan's hands. At this point, all 5 tomb keepers of the Qin clan, including Qin Shao, had fallen in Ning Fan's hands. Damn it! Damn it! Chen Xian was almost blinded by hatred. With a wave of his hand, he wanted to forcefully break through the 6th ancestor of the Luo clan who was standing in front of him. He swore that he would personally take Ning Fan down. But before he could take that step, on the northern platform, a person's eyes suddenly darkened and lightning flashed. In the next instant, a Dao sense that was swift and fierce like lightning swept towards Chen Xian. There was no way he could defend himself. Chen Xian, who was at the initial stage of void rendition, was sent flying by this will, spewing blood. He landed heavily on the ground, destroying a row of jade seats behind him. Countless gazes from the 4 high platforms immediately turned towards a certain person on the north platform. The one who attacked was the 8th elder, Lei Jinshi. 8th elder, Shao followed your order to deal with the Luo family. How could you ignore his death? How can you? Chen Xian was interrupted by Lei Jinshi's cold shout before he could finish. Enough. Chen Xian, don't overdo it. At this moment, Lei Jinshi's gaze was extremely dark. Today, the Qin family could be said to have thrown away all of his face. If I want to kill this kid, I can do it at any time. If you violate the rules of the tomb competition again, this old man will turn you into the thunder spirit's food. This sentence was Lei Jinshi's voice transmission to Chen Xian. When he heard this, Chen Xian felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. His body shivered, but he calmed down. When he recalled what he had done, he suddenly felt a trace of lingering fear. All 5 tomb guardians of the Qin family, including Qin Shao, had violated the rules of the tomb competition. This matter had probably angered everyone. Even Lei Jinshi could not tolerate it. You will have plenty of chances in the 2nd round. Lei Jinshi said again. When he heard this, Chen Xian's eyes lit up and the corner of his mouth curved into a sinister smile. He narrowed his old eyes and glanced at the battle arena. Then, he snorted coldly and waved his hand to rebuild the jade seat that had been destroyed. After killing all the Tomb Guardians of the Chen family, the cold light in Ning Fan's eyes diminished slightly. He scanned the 2 offensive jade slips in his hand with his spirit sense. After a moment of silence, he pointed his finger at the 2 jade slips and swallowed them into his stomach. Zhao Mingde, who was the host of the grand competition, ordered people to clean up the corpses on the battle arena and repair it. Then, he took out the name list and announced, "The Tomb Guardian of the Luo family, Ning Fan, has defeated the 5 Tomb Guardians of the Qin family in a row. He will advance to the second round after winning another 5 matches. Tomb Guardians of the Thousand Mountains sect, step forward." Following Zhao Mingde's order, 2 rays of light immediately flew to the outskirts of the battle arena from the high platform on the west side. The Thousand Mountains sect was a 7th grade sect and it only had 2 Tomb Guardians. One of them was at the late Ghost Profound Realm while the other was at the peak Ghost Profound Realm. Both of them stood outside the battle arena. They actually did not dare to enter the arena. They looked at Ning Fan with respect. After letting out a long sigh, they cupped their fists at Zhao Mingde at the same time. "He Ming of the Thousand Mountains sect knows that I'm not a match for fellow Taoist Ning. I'm willing to admit defeat." As soon as they finished speaking, their figures flashed and flew back to their seats. "Admit defeat. Ning Fan of the Luo family, 7 victories. Tomb Guardians of the Daofa sect, step forward," Zhao Mingde said with a frown. The Daofa sect was still a 7th grade sect. There were also only 2 Tomb Guardians in the sect. These 2 Tomb Guardians were just at the peak mortal profound realm. They swallowed their saliva and directly admitted defeat without flying to the battle arena. Without any suspense, Ning Fan obtained his 9th victory. As long as he won another match, he would advance to the second round. It seems like this Devil Lord Thousand Autumns is definitely going to advance to the second round. Even though he might have used a trick to break the ancient god giant shadow of the Chen clan, the palm strike he used to kill Chen Shao shows his true strength. With just that palm strike, he has the strength to fight against a mid-true crossing realm expert. It won't be difficult for him to win another match and advance to the next round. Just as many old monsters made up their minds, their expressions changed slightly at the next moment. After all, these old monsters did not expect the Shadow Binding sect to participate in the next match. "Tomb Guardians of the Shadow Binding sect, step forward." As soon as Zhao Mingde's voice fell, many old monsters on the 4 high platforms immediately became spirited. On the southern platform, 6 black shadows immediately flew out and landed outside the battle arena. They were the 6 Tomb Guardians of the Shadow Binding sect. The Shadow Binding sect was originally just an 8th grade sect and they only had 4 quotas. However, just before the grave competition, their sect master broke through the shackles of the peak-shedding void realm and advanced to the thought fragmentation realm. Thus, the Shadow Binding sect was promoted to a 9th grade sect. The 6 Tomb Keepers of the Shadow Binding sect didn't have weak auras. 4 of them were at the peak of the Ghost Profound Realm, while the other 2 were at Duzhen. They were the famous duo of the Qin family in the Eastern Sea Star region. His younger brother, Qin Hong, had an early true crossing realm cultivation base. He had met Ning Fan once in the Heavenly Eye Star. His physical body was once destroyed by Jun Changdong. After seizing his body and cultivating again, his cultivation base had declined significantly. His elder brother, Qin Kuang, was ranked 4th in the last tomb competition. He was already at the intermediate stage of the Crossing Truth realm and had won the title of Shadow Immortal Monarch. Qin Hong and the other 4 Tomb Keepers of the Shadow Binding sect didn't move. Only Qin Lian's figure flashed and landed at the center of the battle arena. His eyes were burning with the flames of battle as he looked at Ning Fan. Ning Fan's 10th grave battle was against Qin Kuang, who was at the intermediate Duzhen realm. Those old monsters who were certain that Ning Fan would win were now uncertain again. Qin Kuang could also kill Chen Shao with a single palm strike. The battle between Ning Fan and Qin Kuang would not be easy to determine the victor. It's him. Ning Fan's gaze swept across Qin Hong, who was standing outside the battlefield, and his brows knitted together. That day in the Heavenly Eye Star Trading Pavilion, Qin Hong tried to borrow Ning Fan's body and was shocked by Ning Fan. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn when he glanced at Qin Kuang, who was standing on the battle arena. Qin Kuang looked very similar to Qin Hong. They were both skinny like zombies. Their faces were pale and bloodless, and they both wore black robes. The only difference between him and Qin Hong was that he had a mole below his left eye. His eyes looked more feminine and demonic. He was a mid-true crossing realm cultivator. A cultivator at this level could not be killed by the heaven-holding seal with a single palm strike. Moreover, there was a cold qi lingering around his body. That coldness actually gave Ning Fan a sense of danger. I have heard Qin Hong mention you before. Now that I have seen you with my own eyes, I know that he did not lie. You do have the strength to make Lord Changdong's eyes. However, you are not my opponent. Qin Kuang grinned, revealing his white teeth. His eyes were filled with arrogance. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly and replied indifferently, "We will only know whether I'm a match or not after we fight. I will make you accept your defeat wholeheartedly." Dao Binding, Chaotic Shadow Technique. Qin Kuang's eyes turned sharp. He lifted his foot and stomped on the ground. The ground of the entire battle arena immediately wriggled in a strange manner. At the next moment, tens of thousands of pitch-black chains suddenly flew out from the ground beneath Ning Fan's feet, sealing off all of his escape routes. Then, they shot towards Ning Fan, who was standing at the center of the arena. Those chains were all formed by the shadow technique. They were not afraid of the 5 elemental abilities or attacks. Ning Fan waved his hand and the memory-severing Dao sword appeared in his hand. He raised his hand and swung the sword. Immediately, 108,000 illusory sword shadows shot out in all directions. The sword light directly penetrated the chains when it struck them. It could not stop the shadow chains from advancing at all. At the next moment, several shadow chains arrived at Ning Fan's body and tied him up like a dumpling. As for the remaining shadow chains, they coiled into a gigantic shadow cocoon like silk, trapping Ning Fan inside. "You've lost." The corner of Qin Kuang's mouth curled upwards. Immediately, many exclamations came from the 4 high platforms. Devil Lord Qianqiu has been trapped in the shadow cocoon. He has lost. Once the shadow binding sex chaotic shadow technique binds a cultivator, it would immediately form a seal, sealing off all of that cultivator's magic power. This technique was formless and it could only restrain magic power. If a cultivator has a strong physical body, it would not be able to do so. Unless this Ning Fan's physical body is strong enough otherwise. Before Qin Kuang finished muttering to himself, his eyes suddenly widened. Inside the shadow cocoon, he saw waves of essence qi fluctuating wildly. At the next moment, a destructive explosive wave immediately burst out from within the shadow cocoon. The gigantic cocoon that was formed by tens of thousands of shadow chains was blown into countless afterimages at this moment. Ning Fan walked out from the afterimages that filled the sky. Countless devil talismans and runes swam around his body. His body gave off an earth-shattering ancient devil aura force. Qin Kuang's expression changed. He stomped on the ground again and tens of thousands of shadow chains flew out from the ground. However, Ning Fan suddenly let out a roar. His devil roar formed countless storms that immediately spread in all directions, directly destroying all the shadow chains. Immediately, many old monsters on the 4 high platforms exclaimed in surprise. "It's actually a heavenly devil." Among the pseudo-ancient devil realm cultivators, there aren't many who could cultivate their physical bodies to the heavenly devil realm. Heavenly devil. Since this young man is a heavenly devil, we can't treat him as a profound ghost realm cultivator. Heavenly devils are on the same level as Duzhen. Qin Kuang's eyes widened. He naturally did not expect that Ning Fan's physical body would be this strong. When he looked at Ning Fan again, his eyes became even more solemn. He suddenly raised his hand and pointed at the sky. Shadow Devil Spear, appear. Countless black rays of light formed a vortex in the sky. A 100 zhang long devil spear flew out from the vortex. As soon as it appeared, it immediately stabbed at Ning Fan. This spear was Qin Kuang's Dao weapon. Ning Fan moved slightly to avoid the sudden attack of the spear light, allowing the devil spear to pierce the ground. Layer after layer of earth immediately collapsing, and there were even strange black shadow flames burning. Shadow splitting. Qin Kuang changed his hand seal. The devil spear immediately split into 2 and then into 4. For shadows of the spear immediately stabbed at Ning Fan from 4 directions. This Dao weapon isn't weak. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. He lifted the memory-severing Dao sword and activated the sword light. The body of the sword, which was originally black-golden, immediately gave off faint purple qi. As he moved his sword seal, the body of the sword immediately shot out 4 rays of purple sword light, clashing with the 4 shadows of the spear. The power of a Dao weapon was directly related to the cultivation base of a cultivator. In terms of magic power, Ning Fan was weaker than Qin Kuang. The ordinary sword light of the memory-severing Dao sword should also be slightly weaker than the spear light. However, these 4 rays of purple sword light were an exception. At the moment when the spear and the sword collided, the 4 shadows of the spear were immediately shattered by the sword light. Qin Kuang's Dao weapon was directly destroyed by Ning Fan. The 4 rays of purple sword light did not slow down at all. Instead, they continued to slash at Qin Kuang. Qin Kuang stared at the 4 rays of purple sword light in disbelief. With a flash, he disappeared from his original spot. The 4 rays of purple sword light followed closely behind Qin Kuang and disappeared in a flash. At the next moment, somewhere in the vast sky where there was no one, the space suddenly collapsed and the sword light exploded. As for Qin Kuang, he fell from that space. The 4 sword wounds on his body were shocking to the eyes. The Dao weapon of Qin Kuang, who was at the mid-crossing truth realm, was destroyed by Ning Fan, and he was even injured by Ning Fan's sword. Heavenly Dao Purple Qi. There's no mistake. Those 4 rays of purple sword light were nurtured by the Heavenly Dao Purple Qi. If I'm not mistaken, this Devil Lord Thousand Autumns actually used 4 rays of purple qi to nurture his Dao weapon. Exclamations of surprise could be heard from all 4 high platforms. Even Shi Kong and old monster Sui Nian were staring at the Dao weapon in Ning Fan's hand with fiery eyes. Using 4 rays of purple qi to nurture a Dao weapon. Such a generous act made countless old monsters at the scene feel shocked and envious. On the seats of the Ghost Weapon sect, old Ancestor Ghost Soldier felt his heart aching. The heavenly Dao Purple Qi that Ning Fan used to nurture his Dao weapon was taken from him. However, when he thought of Ning Fan's powerful background, his expression became relieved. It was worth it to be able to win over a big shot of a secret race. At the moment, Li Xiao's small hands were trembling. She could barely hold the 8 treasures cake in her hand. She knew that a trace of heavenly Dao Purple Qi was worth 300 billion Dao crystals. Moreover, it was usually priceless. 4 traces of purple qi. She could no longer count it. It's so much money. Ning Fan, on the other hand, immediately smiled with satisfaction when he saw that he was able to injure Qin Kuang, who was at the mid-crossing truth realm. It was worth it for him to purposely use the heavenly Dao Purple Qi to nurture his Dao weapon before coming to the tomb competition. Heavenly Devil Physical Body, Purple Qi Dao Weapon. Qin Kuang stood in the sky and stared at the memory-severing Dao sword in Ning Fan's hand. He could feel a great sense of danger from this Dao weapon. With a wave of his hand, the Devil Spear reappeared. Qin Kuang held the Devil Spear upside down. His eyes narrowed and he suddenly activated a secret technique of the Shadow Binding sect. Countless strange shadow technique runes immediately appeared on the surface of the Devil Spear, increasing the power of the Dao weapon by about 5%. At the moment when the runes attached to the Devil Spear, Qin Kuang dashed down and swung the Devil Spear horizontally, clashing with Ning Fan. The spear and the sword clashed. This time, the Devil Spear was not much weaker than the memory-severing Dao sword, but it was still slightly weaker. After more than 10 rounds, countless cracks appeared on the surface of the Devil Spear. In the end, it collapsed once again. When the devil spear collapsed this time, there were 4 sword wounds on Qin Kuang's chest. Judging from the current situation, he no longer had a high chance of winning. He was almost being suppressed by Ning Fan. I initially wanted to save my trump card for the last time to compete with Jun Zhangdong. Now, it seems like I have no choice but to use it here. A wave of cold qi suddenly spread out from Qin Kuang's fingers. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. It was this cold qi that gave him a sense of danger. As Qin Kuang changed his hand's seal, the ground at the edge of the battle arena suddenly cracked and 8 giant shadow doors rose from the ground. Open the door. Door of rest. Door of life. Open. As Qin Kuang changed his hand's seal, 3 of the 8 giant doors immediately opened. 3 10-zhang tall shadow devils walked out from them. Each of the shadow devils was at the early crossing truth realm. Door of stop. Door view. Open. Another 2 giant doors appeared. This time, the 2 shadow devils that walked out of them were actually at the mid-crossing truth realm. It's the long-lost 8 gates of devil shadow technique of the shadow binding sect. Did this Qin Kuang succeed in cultivating it? Unfortunately, he can only open 5 gates. If he could open the last 3 ominous gates, he would be able to summon a late crossing truth shadow devil to fight against him. There were discussions in the surroundings, but none of the 2 people on the battle arena were listening to them. Qin Kuang had already reached his limit by forcibly opening 5 gates. How could he have the spare energy to be distracted? As he raised his hand and pointed at Ning Fan, the 5 shadow devils immediately besieged him. Then he held the devil spear upside down and joined the team that besieged Ning Fan. With 3 early crossing truth realm and 3 mid-crossing truth realm experts besieging Ning Fan, unless Ning Fan's strength was comparable to a late crossing truth realm expert, he would definitely be defeated. This kid is going to lose. Although his palm seal was strong, it was obviously not enough to deal with the siege of 6 crossing truths. After all, there are 3 mid-crossing truths realm experts among the 6 crossing truths realm experts. Unless he uses the Spirit Blast technique, it will be difficult for him to win. Unfortunately, the rules of the tomb competition forbids the use of this kind of divine ability. He can only fight with his own strength. If he can't use the Spirit Blast technique, he will definitely lose. Elder Lu, who was standing beside the little demoness, shook his head slightly, as if he was sure that Ning Fan would lose. The little demoness smiled and said disapprovingly, "He hasn't used his full strength. How can Elder Lu be so sure that he will lose?" "Haven't used his full strength? Hee, Miss must be joking. Is that palm seal not considered his full strength? Heavenly Devil Body and Purple Chi Dao weapon not considered his full strength? It's not. He is not the kind of person who will use all his trump cards at the beginning. He will not lose this battle." His eyes are still very calm. The little demoness said with certainty, "Miss, why don't you make a bet with me? If this kid can really defeat Qin Kuang, I am willing to leave for 10 days and give Miss 10 days of freedom. If this kid loses, Miss must follow me to the sect pavilion willingly and swallow the void fruit again to cultivate to the limit of void poison. We can't delay any longer. You want me to eat the void fruit again?" The little demoness smiled bitterly. "This is your destiny. You can't disobey it. The void fruit can greatly improve your cultivation method, and at the same time, it can purify your sacrificial body. Even if you don't make this bet with me today, you will have to eat the void fruit again within 10 years. No need to say more. I will make this bet. I believe in him. He won't lose. Nothing could be better than to earn 10 days of freedom." Having said that, the little demoness didn't say anything else. She just looked at the battle stage with a smile. She believed that Ning Fan would win. Just by looking at Ning Fan's eyes, she knew that Ning Fan had put in a lot of effort. Unknowingly, her understanding of Ning Fan seemed to be deep in her bones. Elder Lu, on the other hand, didn't believe that Ning Fan would win. At this stage, no one would think that Ning Fan still had a chance of winning. Currently, Ning Fan had already activated the first transformation of the War God art to strengthen his heavenly devil body. Even so, he could only protect himself under the siege of 6 Dujin experts. After all, he wasn't a late Dujin expert. He didn't have the ability to fight 6 people at once. After being repelled by Qin Kuang's long spear again, Ning Fan finally sighed. He had to admit that with his current cultivation base, he couldn't defeat Qin Kuang without using his trump cards. His eyes suddenly revealed an indifferent expression that was as indifferent as the Tao. All of a sudden, a chilly autumn wind blew across heaven and earth. Ning Fan took half a step back and steadied himself. Finally, he raised his finger and pointed at Qin Kuang. At the moment when his finger touched the ground, a strange scene of tens of thousands of leaves fluttering in the sky suddenly appeared. A wave of lonely and desolate Taoist rhymes swept through the entire arena in an instant. The autumn wind was formed by Ning Fan's Tao sense. The autumn leaves were formed by Ning Fan's devil sense. When the Tao rises, the devil disappears. When the wind rises, the leaves disappear. All the sounds in heaven and earth seemed to have disappeared in an instant, leaving only the sound of the wind. Even though the power of the Tao sense spread out, the tens of thousands of leaves in the sky turned into ashes at this moment. The west wind is like the Tao. The death of cultivators is like the leaves. In my opinion, all of you are like the leaves. When the wind rises, the leaves disappear. Ning Fan's voice was suddenly mixed with the autumn wind and spread across heaven and earth. The autumn wind had fused with the Tao sense and rolled up the ashes of the tens of thousands of leaves. All of a sudden, it became stern, desolate, and fierce. In just an instant, the autumn wind blew across the entire battle stage. The invisible power of the Tao sense shook towards Qin Kuang and the other shadow devils, immediately pushing them back 100 zhang. As the autumn wind approached him, a feeling of impending death immediately rose in Qin Kuang's heart, causing him to be so frightened that his soul almost left his body. He suddenly had an illusion. In Ning Fan's eyes, he was like a falling leaf that was about to fall and turn into dust, turning into ashes. No, I can't resist it. Without any hesitation, Qin Kuang directly turned into a shadow and fled out of the battle stage in a frenzy. Ning Fan only glanced at Qin Kuang for a brief moment. He did not kill him. As Ning Fan's Tao sense moved, the 5 shadow devils on the stage immediately began to turn into ashes. The first to turn into ashes were the 3 early truth-crossing realm shadow devils. They only lasted for half a breath of time in the autumn wind before falling. As for the 2 mid-truth-crossing realm shadow devils, they only lasted for 3 breaths of time in the autumn wind before turning into ashes. The West Wind technique directly killed 5 mid-truth crossing realm shadow devils, including 2 mid-truth crossing realm shadow devils. Activating the West Wind technique to such an extent had consumed almost 90% of Ning Fan's magic power. Dense, baleful qi gushed out from his body and swept across the high platforms in all directions. Countless old monsters stood up and stared at Ning Fan, who was standing at the center of the battle stage in disbelief. Even Broken Thought's old monster wore a shocked expression and looked at Ning Fan in disbelief. Chen Xian's eyes widened, staring at the battle stage. He could not believe the scene in front of him at all. His breathing became rapid. After a long time, he gritted his teeth and said, "It's the Tao sense technique. How is this possible?" Wasn't the Broken Thought's old monster the only one who could use the Tao sense technique? How could this young man use it? Chapter 841. The West Wind technique was a type of Tao sense technique. It was a divine ability that only thought-shattering cultivators could use. Ning Fan had only used this technique and it had already shocked millions of cultivators. If these cultivators knew that this West Wind technique was Ning Fan's self-created divine ability, they would probably be even more shocked. Chen Xian had imagined it countless times in his mind. If Ning Fan was a shedding void cultivator like him, it would be a piece of cake for him to kill 10 of him with this divine ability. His eyes were filled with astonishment. This astonishment also appeared in the eyes of countless cultivators. The great elder of the godly void pavilion suddenly stood up and looked at Ning Fan with astonishment. There was a legend in the 4 heavens. Cultivators who could cultivate Tao sense technique before reaching the peak of shedding void realm would be able to step into the thought-shattering realm. Moreover, they would not encounter any bottlenecks in the entire thought-shattering realm. As long as their luck was not too bad, it would only be a matter of time for them to break through to the eternal ancient realm. This kid actually has the potential to become an eternal immortal venerable. The great elder of the godly void pavilion exclaimed. The other 8 divine void elders were also shocked. Whether it was Luo Shi who was on good terms with Ning Fan or Lei Jinshi who had the intention to kill Ning Fan, they all had the same expression, disbelief. The leaves of the west wind technique had yet to disperse. The 4 high platforms were silent. Only the sound of the wind could be heard. Ning Fan withdrew his finger and dispersed the autumn wind. His eyes swept across Qin Kong who had escaped to the outside of the platform. There was still some Dao sense in his eyes that had yet to disperse. Qin Kong's soul was immediately shaken. At this moment, he felt as if he was being stared at by the thought-shattering old monster. The invisible pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. Ning Fan's eyes swept across the other tomb keepers of the Shadowbind sect, including Qin Hong. Any cultivator who was swept by Ning Fan's gaze felt suffocated. Ning Fan raised his head and his eyes swept across the 4 high platforms. He saw the shocked expression of Luo Xian and the other tomb keepers. He saw Luo Zhao's dumbfounded expression on the Luo clan seats. He saw Li Xiaoxiao's mouth that was wide open. His eyes swept across the seats of the Chen clan. Chen Xian held his breath as he felt an invisible pressure from Ning Fan. His gaze swept over the seats of the Ghost Weapon sect, only to see that the Ghost Weapon ancestor was also shocked speechless. His gaze finally landed on the little temptress's seat. The little demon girl looked at him with a smile. She was the only person in the entire bronze platform who had the least surprise in her eyes. She was the one who understood Ning Fan the most, and also the one who believed in Ning Fan's strength the most. Therefore, she was the least surprised. The moment Ning Fan's eyes swept past, the little demoness actually threw a flying kiss in his direction as if she was teasing him. It's still the same, but it seems like Asi's void poison has been completely removed. That's good. Ning Fan subconsciously touched his mouth and the corner of his mouth curved upwards. After dispersing the Dao sense in his eyes, Ning Fan turned around and walked down the stage. Now that he had defeated Qin Kong, he had achieved 10 victories. He did not need to fight anyone else for the time being. Elder Xiaomingde, who was in charge of the tomb contest, saw Ning Fan walking away from the battlefield. Only then did he recover from his shock and said in a clear voice, "The tomb keeper of the Luo clan, Ning Fan, has obtained 10 victories and advanced to the second round. Luo family's next tomb keeper, step forward. Shadowbinding sect's next tomb keeper, step forward." The grand contest continued. The next match was between Luo Xian and Qin Hong. Even though Qin Hong's cultivation base was greatly reduced, he was still Du Zhen after all. After just a few rounds, he defeated Luo Xian and the other tomb keepers of the Luo clan. In the end, Ning Fan was the only tomb keeper of the Luo clan who advanced to the second round. The first round of the grand contest lasted for another 7 days before it ended. A total of 174 tomb keepers advanced to the second round. The second round of the grand contest would be held 1 month later. The venue was still the bronze platform. Before the second round began, no one was allowed to stay in the venue other than the elders of the godly void pavilion. The millions of cultivators who came to watch the grand contest went to the cultivation planets near the bronze platform and temporarily settled down. Ning Fan followed the cultivators of the Luo clan and temporarily settled down on a cultivation planet called the Purple Mist Planet. The Purple Mist Planet was a cultivation planet that had a rainy season all year round. Wang Meng passed the information about Tai Su that he had collected in the past 2 years to Ning Fan. The old ancestor of the Ghost Soldier sect also secretly went to find Ning Fan and handed him the star-defying devil armor that he had finished refining. This star-defying devil armor was infused with countless efforts of the old ancestor of the Ghost Soldier sect. Its power was quite strong. It was a 4th Nirvana nascent heaven spiritual equipment. For 3 consecutive days, Ning Fan stayed in his room to refine the star-defying devil armor. On the 4th day, he completely refined the devil armor into his body. Then, he stood up and walked to the window. He took out the information jade slip that Wang Meng had collected and frowned slightly. Wang Meng had collected quite a lot of information. Obviously, he had put in a lot of effort. The information recorded everything about Lightning Emperor Tai Su's life after he became an emperor. However, there were not many records about his deeds before he became an emperor. As for the hometown of Lightning Emperor Tai Su, the information did not mention a word about it at all. Lightning Emperor Tai Su fell about 50 million years ago. When he was alive, he was one of the 4 supreme immortal emperors of the Eastern Heaven immortal world. He controlled the Tao of lightning. None of the information before he became an emperor. This person only appeared in the Eastern Heaven when he was close to becoming an emperor. No one knows where he came from. As soon as he became an emperor, he controlled lightning and shocked the Eastern Heaven. After he became an emperor, he lived in seclusion in the 3000 lightning world of the Eastern Heaven. Ning Fan kept the jade slip and sighed softly. Then, he took out the jade slip that Lightning Emperor Tai Su had given him before. Looking at the star map of the true lightning world that was recorded in it, he was at a loss. There was only a star map but no astrolabe to indicate the direction. Trying to find the true lightning world in the Eastern Heaven was like looking for a needle in a haystack. There were countless star regions in the Eastern Heaven immortal world. Too many of them were still unknown and uninhabited. If he aimlessly searches for the true lightning world in the galaxy, he did not know when he would be able to find it. Chi-A sword light that transmitted sound suddenly flashed and flew into the room from outside the window. Ning Fan raised his hand and caught the sword light. When he heard the message, his eyes immediately flickered. After staying silent for a while, Ning Fan walked out of the room. Bathing in the drizzle, he left the residence of the cultivators of the Luo clan and went straight to a certain restaurant in Cultivation City. The first round of the grand competition had ended a few days ago. In the restaurant, many cultivators were talking about the Tomb Guardians. The one who talked about the most was Ning Fan. In the hall on the first floor, there was a table full of Void Refinement Realm cultivators talking about Ning Fan with saliva flying everywhere. In a corner of the hall, a young lady in black robes was sipping spiritual tea with a smile. She was listening to the people talking about Ning Fan in a good mood. Who else could it be other than little Demoness? Senior Marshal Brother Lu, you have no idea. That old ancestor Qian Qiu killed the young lord of the Chun clan with just a palm strike. One should know that the young lord of the Chun clan was an early true immortal realm crossing realm. TSKSK when that palm strike was executed, the entire heaven and earth fell into darkness. You didn't see it with your own eyes, so you will never know how shocking that scene was. In the past, the technique that old ancestor Qian Qiu was most praised for was the Divine Blast technique. But now, the technique that he is most praised for is none other than the West Wind technique. That is the Dao Sense technique. You didn't see that scene. After old ancestor Qian Qiu used that technique, millions of cultivators were so shocked that they could not speak a word. My sect master said that since old ancestor Qian Qiu was able to use the Dao Sense technique when he was still in the profound ghost realm, he has a great chance to become an eternal immortal venerable in this lifetime. According to the information that I received, the 3 dark horses that are most likely to win the first place in this competition have already been announced. One of them is the Bone Immortal Monarch, Jun Changdong. The second one is the disciple of the Divine Space Sect, Su Dao. The third one, who is also the most promising, is Ancestor Qian Qiu, Senior Ning. It is said that Senior Ning is a disciple of the Slaughter Hall. With his current cultivation, if he returns to the Slaughter Hall, he will most likely be bestowed a ghost mask. Everyone was so drunk that they didn't notice that Ancestor Qian Qiu, whom they kept mentioning, had already quietly arrived at the restaurant. Almost no one noticed Ning Fan's arrival. His aura didn't seem to exist at all, as if it had merged with the misty rain outside the restaurant. As soon as he entered the restaurant, he went straight to the corner of the first floor and sat down. The little demoness on the other side immediately took out a glass teacup and placed it in front of Ning Fan's. Then, she took the teapot on the red clay stove and poured a cup of spirit tea for Ning Fan's with a smile. It was a very familiar smell. It was the smell of Qilin tea. The little demoness had brewed this tea for him when he was in the rain world. Hee, do you miss this taste? The tea I brew has always been unique. There aren't many people who have the honor to taste it. Ning Fan lifted the teacup and smelled the familiar fragrance of the tea. Listening to the sound of rain outside the window, his thoughts seemed to have returned to the rain world many years ago. He took a sip and the tea and memories entered his stomach at the same time. It was a very warm feeling. The tea brewed by ACI is naturally nostalgic. Hee, as expected of the successor of Ancient Chaos. You sure have a glib tongue. Do you still remember the 3 favors that you owe me? I remember. You asked me to accompany you to the demon world to retrieve the fisherman's cowhide painting. Consider it as repaying 2 favors. Ning Fan reminisced. That's right. You saved me again during the quicksand tribulation and helped me detoxify the poison. The 3rd favor has been repaid. However, I still want you to owe me a 4th favor and be entangled with me. As soon as she finished speaking, the little demoness took out a jade slip and handed it to Ning Fan. Ning Fan received the jade slip and scanned it with his spirit sense. His eyes immediately widened in shock. When he looked at the little demoness expression again, it was full of solemnity. Did you gather this information? How did you know that I need it? I guessed it. Do you want this jade slip? If you want it, you will owe me another favor. Ning Fan was slightly startled. Then, he looked at the little demoness with a funny expression. He did not believe that the little demoness gathered this information just to make him owe her a favor. She obviously wanted to help him, but she was not frank enough and was not willing to admit it. There was a lot of information in this jade slip that was related to Lightning Emperor Tai Su before he became an emperor. Among them, there was even some information about the true lightning world. With this jade slip, Ning Fan only needed to spend a little time to find the location of the true lightning world. This information was not easy to gather. Perhaps the little demoness used her identity as the divine void young lord to obtain it by any means possible. I will accept the jade slip. I will return the 4th favor to you very soon. Don't worry. Ning Fan kept the jade slip and smiled faintly. When he obtained the 1st place in the tomb competition, he would make a request to the godly void pavilion to return the favor to the little demoness. Hey, who cares about you returning it? The little demoness was still smiling, but in her heart, she snorted softly and felt slightly disappointed. Why was Ning Fan in such a hurry to return the favor? Could it be that he was in a hurry to disassociate himself from her? After finishing a pot of tea, the little demoness followed Ning Fan back to the Luo clan's encampment and stayed with him for 10 days before leaving. Ning Fan did not know that these 10 days of freedom were very precious. They were won from the bet between the little demoness and Elder Lu. On the 11th day, Ning Fan's room was empty and he was the only one left. Looking at the messy bed, Ning Fan was silent for a moment. In these 10 days, the little demoness stayed on his bed every night and slept with him, but she did not allow him to do anything that crossed the boundary. He understood the reason. The sacrificial offering was not allowed to be tainted. If he crossed the boundary with the little demoness, he was afraid that it would incite the wrath of the divine void emperors. He would be retaliated by the godly void pavilion, and the little demoness and the Shao clan behind her would also face a calamity. If I obtain the 1st place in the tomb competition, I will naturally return ACI her freedom. It's better not to be a divine void young lord in name. Ning Fan remained silent for a long time before sitting cross-legged and took out the jade slip that the little demoness gave him. The jade slip had mentioned the location of the true lightning world. There was no accurate description, but it told Ning Fan that there was actually a disciple of Lightning Emperor Tai Su who was still alive in the former residence of the 3000 Thunder World. On the jade slip, the name, cultivation base, and other information of this person were listed. Only a few people knew that this person was the disciple of Lightning Emperor Tai Su. The little demoness had spent a lot of effort to find out about this. This person appeared together with Lightning Emperor Tai Su in the Eastern Heaven Immortal World. As long as Ning Fan could find this person, he would have a chance to ask about the location of the true lightning world. Without ACI's help, it would be very difficult for me to find out such confidential information. After the tomb competition, I can go to the 3000 Thunder World to look for this person. Perhaps I can find out the location of the true lightning world. After keeping all the jade slips, Ning Fan sat cross-legged in the room with his eyes closed. His mind was immersed in the misty rain outside the door. The rain star on his glabella flickered faintly. The yin-yang rain force in his body was also flowing slightly. Gradually, Ning Fan seemed to hear the breathing sound of the rain and mist of heaven and earth. With each breath, he gradually became one with the rain of heaven and earth. His body seemed to have turned into a light drizzle and gradually disappeared from the room. Time passed day by day. Ning Fan's body only reappeared in the room on the day of the second round of the tomb competition. As soon as he appeared, 5 dissatisfied voices came from the sword pouch. "Humph. The second round of the tomb competition has finally begun. If you don't let us show our faces this time, we will go on strike. We won't work anymore." Inside the sword pouch, the 5 sword spirits had been sulking for a month. They were angry because they had accompanied Ning Fan to cultivate arduously for 6 months at the bottom level of the divine tomb and finally completed a certain ability. In the end, Ning Fan actually did not let them show their faces. "Don't worry. In this round of tomb competition, all of you will have a chance to show your faces." Ning Fan patted the sword pouch to comfort them. Then he strode out of the room and followed the cultivators of the Luo clan to the bronze platform. Luo Xiao did not come. His injuries were too severe and he had already been sent back to the heavenly sea star. He was busy seizing another body to cultivate again. Luo Xian did not come. She was burying her brother's headless corpse in the heavenly sea star. Wang Meng followed behind Ning Fan with a flushed face. He accompanied Ning Fan all the way to the venue. As soon as Ning Fan arrived, he attracted the attention of countless old monsters. Naturally, Wang Meng was extremely proud of himself. He wished that he could tell everyone that he, Wang Meng, was Ning Fan's slave. If Ning Fan's cultivation base was just slightly stronger than his, he would certainly not feel proud to be Ning Fan's slave. Today, Ning Fan had taken back Luo Huan's corpse and fulfilled one of his long-cherished wishes. Moreover, he had also revealed his terrifying potential, which made him likely to become an immortal venerable in the future. At this moment, Wang Meng was willing to serve Ning Fan as his master from the bottom of his heart. It was not shameful to be a slave to a cultivator who could become an immortal venerable in the future. On the contrary, it was a kind of glory. "I have collected a lot of information about the second round. Please have a look, master." Wang Meng took out a jade slip and passed it to Ning Fan. Then he bowed respectfully and excused himself. He sent Ning Fan to the outer area of the venue. Only the tomb guardians who advanced to the second round could enter the inner area. He could not. Ning Fan looked at Wang Meng, who was leaving, with a surprised expression. Then he scanned the jade slip in his hand with his spirit sense. Now he had a complete understanding of the second round. The battle arena at the center of the venue had been demolished and 24 tomb palaces were built. The second round of the competition was not a battle but a tomb challenge. The 24 tomb palaces were numbered differently from the first tomb to the 24th. The further one advanced, the more difficult it would be to challenge the tombs. The rules of the second round were very simple. Those who could challenge the first 5 tomb palaces would be qualified to advance to the third round. In the first round, many cultivators with profound strength were eliminated because they encountered stronger opponents. There were also cultivators with lower cultivation bases who were lucky enough to advance to the third round because their opponents were too weak. Luck existed in the first round, but there was no such thing in the second round. If one's strength was not enough, he or she could only be eliminated. Gradually, all 174 tomb guardians arrived at the venue. The host of the second round was a mid-shedding Void Realm beautiful woman in palace attire. She was an elder of the Void Realm and her surname was Yen. Elder Yan's beautiful eyes scanned across the tomb guardians. Her gaze lingered on Ning Fan for the longest time. He was a cultivator who had the potential to become an immortal venerable. She had no choice but to pay attention to him. This young man has attracted the most attention. Let's let him appear as the finale. Elder Yen made up her mind. She waved her palm and took out a name list. The order of appearance for the second round had not been decided yet. It was up to her to decide. Elder Yen scanned the name list and said softly, "The second round of the tomb competition will be hosted by me. It begins now. I believe all of you have more or less understood the rules. As long as you can challenge the first 5 tombs, you will be qualified to advance to the third round. Next, those whose names are called by me, come out and challenge the tombs." Zhou Clan, Zhou Yu. As soon as Elder Yan's voice fell, an early Ghost Realm cultivator walked out from the crowd. His name was Zhou Yu. He was a cultivator from the Eastern Ocean Zhou Clan. He was the first to fight in the first round. In the second round, he was still the first to fight. Zhou Yu walked towards the first tomb palace step by step. The door of the tomb opened by itself. His eyes turned serious and he leaped into the tomb palace. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the tomb palace shone with divine light. Zhou Yu walked out of the tomb with some injuries on his body. You have the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to recover your magic power after you challenge the first tomb. Elder Yan's voice was heard. Zhou Yu's face turned slightly pale. For a cultivator of the second step like him, the time it takes for an incense stick to burn wasn't enough to recover much magic power. Zhou Yu used this time to take a pill and sat cross-legged on the ground to recover some of his magic power. When the time was up, he stood up and entered the second tomb palace. This time, he spent a whole hour to pass the second tomb. When he walked out of the tomb, his magic power was almost depleted and his body was full of injuries. This man has reached his limit. I'm afraid he won't be able to pass the third tomb. Many old monsters on the viewing platform were discussing. As expected, Zhou Yu stepped into the third tomb after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Unfortunately, he only entered for a few breaths before he was blasted out by a vast force. He stopped at the third tomb. It should be said that he was lucky to be able to pass the second tomb with his early Ghost Realm cultivation base. Under countless gazes, Zhou Yu gritted his teeth and left unwillingly. Elder Yan's voice was heard at the right time. Green Cloud Valley, Luzhu. The name that was called was a green-clothed girl with mid-Ghost Realm cultivation base. She only spent 100 breaths to pass the first tomb. As for the second tomb, she spent the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. When she reached the third tomb, she struggled for 2 hours but still failed. Stopped at the third tomb again. I wonder how many tombs I can reach if I go all out. Ning Fan muttered to himself. Just as his voice faded, a playful voice came from behind. I was defeated in the 11th tomb in the past. If no one had plotted against me, I might have been able to pass the 12th tomb. The one who spoke was the bone immortal monarch that Ning Fan had met once before, Jun Changdong. He had white hair and was walking slowly towards Ning Fan. The gazes of the tomb guards beside Ning Fan changed slightly and they took a few steps back, as if they were afraid of Jun Changdong. Be careful! Jun Changdong's eyes suddenly turned solemn and transmitted his voice to Ning Fan. Ning Fan's eyes changed slightly. He immediately understood the meaning behind Jun Changdong's words. Jun Changdong was plotted against in the second round of the tomb trial. If he was in Jun Changdong's shoes, would he also be plotted against? Ning Fan raised his eyes and looked at the seats of Qin family. He saw Qin Xian's cold smile and couldn't help but feel vigilant. Thanks for the reminder. Ning Fan cupped his fists and thanked Jun Changdong. Hee, I didn't remind you anything. Brother Ning is the one who worries too much. As he finished speaking, Jun Changdong's eyes turned cold and glanced at the high platform in the north. He was looking at the 8th elder Lei Jinshi. The 24 tomb palaces in the second round were built by 3 elders and one of them was Lei Jinshi. Jun Changdong had offended a junior of Lei Jinshi's, which was why he was plotted against in the last competition. Although he didn't say anything, he understood that it was most likely related to Lei Jinshi. Ning Fan followed Jun Changdong's gaze and looked at the high platform in the north. He seemed to have understood something. Hee, I wonder how many rounds this kid can last against the Thunder Spirit before being eaten. Qin Xian sneered in his heart. The 8th elder Lei Jinshi had found an innate Thunder Spirit by chance and spent millions of years to cultivate it to the mid-shedding Void Realm. No matter how strong Ning Fan's ability was, he wouldn't be a match for this Thunder Spirit. Chapter 842. The second round of the competition was still ongoing. On the first day, not a single tomb keeper had succeeded. There were a total of 9 tomb keepers, and the highest cultivation level was at the late ghost mystic realm. None of them had passed the first 5 tombs. Only on the second day did cultivators of the ghost arcane realm pass through the first 5 tombs. Without a peak ghost profound cultivation base, it was almost impossible to pass through the 5th tomb. According to Ning Fan's observation, in order to pass through the 5th tomb, one must at least have a cultivation base close to the peak of ghost profound. On the 17th day, out of the 174 tomb keepers, 125 of them had already completed their quest. These 135 people were all at the life immortal level, and only 27 of them had entered the third round. Most of them were at the peak of the ghost mystic level, and only a few were at the late stage. Even a peak ghost mystic realm expert could only go as far as the 6th tomb. Almost no one could pass through the 7th tomb. Other than Ning Fan, the rest of the 49 people who had yet to enter the tomb were all cultivators of Dujin. Out of these 49 people, the first to enter the tomb was the blood thrall, Yuan Kuang. Yuan clan, Yuan Kuang. When Elder Yen called out Yuan Kuang's name, a bald man immediately walked out of the crowd. It was Yuan Kuang. The moment this person walked out, countless gazes immediately focused on him from all 4 high platforms. Many old monsters had already heard that Yuan Kuang had already broken through the early stages of the Crossing Truth realm. Even though his realm had yet to stabilize, there was no doubt that he would make it into the top 50. The 7th tomb isn't difficult for Yuan Kuang. The 8th tomb is a little difficult, and the 9th tomb isn't something he can pass. I wonder if Yuan Kuang can pass the 8th tomb. Some of the old monsters muttered to themselves while some of them quietly shifted their gazes towards Ning Fan. They had heard that Ning Fan had once forced Yuan Kuang to retreat with a single sword attack. "Brother Ning, please forgive me for offending you that day." Yuan Kuang did not enter the tomb immediately. Instead, he went to Ning Fan first and apologized to him with a solemn expression. What he had to pay for was the crime of speaking rudely to Ning Fan in the market square of the Divine Tomb. Ning Fan glanced at Yuan Kuang and said indifferently, "I have forgotten what happened that day. Brother Ning's magnanimity, Yuan Kuang admires you. See you in the third round." Yuan Kuang cupped his fists to express his gratitude and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He did not dare to offend the current Ning Fan at all. He was most afraid that Ning Fan would bear a grudge against him. Seeing that Ning Fan had forgiven him, Yuan Kuang felt relieved. His body immediately flashed and entered the first tomb. 3 breaths later, Yuan Kuang passed through the first tomb. He didn't leave the tomb palace to rest, but directly used the teleportation array to enter the second tomb. 5 breaths of time later, Yuan Kuangfu passed the second tomb. He continued onward, passing the first 6 tombs. Only then did he leave the Necropolis Palace for the first time and rest for the time it takes an incense stick to burn. When the time was up, Yuan Kuang's eyes narrowed and he stepped into the 7th tomb. It took him 100 breaths to pass. After resting, Yuan Kuang ventured into the 8th tomb. Within the 8th tomb, Yuan Kuang stayed for a total of 2 hours. 2 hours later, the 8th tomb suddenly shone with divine light. Yuan Kuang walked out of the tomb palace with blood all over his body. His injuries were extremely severe, and he no longer had the strength to challenge the 9th tomb. Knowing that attempting the 9th tomb was futile, Yuan Kuang was decisive in giving up on the 9th tomb. Even with Yuan Kuang's cultivation base, he could only pass the 8th tomb. "I might be able to pass the 24th tomb." Ning Fan's eyes gradually turned serious. There was a special rule in the second round. If any of the tomb keepers managed to pass the 24th tomb, they would be promoted to the first place, and the competition would end there. The third round was cancelled. All the tomb keepers would be ranked according to the results of the first 2 rounds. Of course, if more than one person managed to pass the 24th tomb at the same time, all of them would be ranked first. In the information provided by Wang Meng, there was such a rule. If it was possible, Ning Fan was naturally willing to pass the 24th tomb and obtain the first place. However, with his current cultivation base, the chances of him passing the 24th tomb in one go wasn't high. Shadowbind's sect, Qin Hong. As soon as Elder Yan's voice faded, Qin Hong, the younger brother of Qin Hong, walked out from the crowd. Qin Hong's complexion was very bad. Although he had defeated Luo Xian and the others, he had also suffered serious injuries that hadn't healed yet. In addition, his cultivation base had deteriorated, so he didn't have much confidence in passing the 8th tomb. Sure enough, after passing 7 tombs, Qin Hong finally stopped at the 8th tomb. After Qin Hong's death, 4 days passed. During these 4 days, there were a total of 45 early crossing truth tomb keepers, including Yuan Kuang and Qin Hong. Most of them stopped at the 8th and 9th tomb. Only 3 of them managed to pass the 9th tomb, and their strength was slightly weaker than Chen Xiao. If Chen Xiao was still alive, he might be able to pass the 10th tomb. Apart from Ning Fan, there were only 3 people who didn't pass the tomb. One of them was Jun Changdong, who revealed an intermediate crossing truth cultivation base. The second one was Su Dao, who occasionally glanced at Ning Fan with hostility. The last one was a female cultivator who wore a light yellow dress. She was also an intermediate crossing truth cultivator. Void Sect's disciple, Yu Han. As soon as Elder Yan's voice faded, the yellow-robed lady called Yu Han walked out gracefully. When she passed by Ning Fan, she suddenly stopped and said proudly, "I also know a little bit of Dao Sense technique. It's nothing great." As soon as she finished speaking, 6 moon-colored divine stars lit up on her glabella. At the same time, 10 moon blades suddenly revolved around her body. Her aura was astonishing. This is the 10th blade? Fairy Yu Han's moon transformation technique has actually reached the 10th realm. The 10th realm. The highest realm. Legend has it that once the moon transformation technique reaches the 10th realm, a trace of Dao Sense force could be integrated into the technique, turning the moon transformation technique into Dao Sense technique. If that's the case, Fairy Yu Han also knows how to use Dao Sense technique. Incredible! This lady has such a high aptitude. Even though it's not a complete Dao Sense technique and she can't be compared to old ancestor Qian Qiu, it's still enough for her to be proud of. The people on the 4 high platforms immediately started discussing with each other. Those voices were a little ear-piercing, causing Yu Han to frown. Then she waved her hand and kept the moon blades. "What do you mean by I can't be compared to Ning Fan? That's not what I want to hear." When she looked at Ning Fan again, the annoyance in her beautiful eyes increased. Before the upcoming tomb competition, she had finally mastered the 10th realm of moon transformation technique and integrated a trace of Dao Sense into her technique. Initially, she wanted to amaze everyone in the tomb competition. However, she did not expect that Ning Fan would display the Dao Sense technique before her, shocking everyone. As expected, she could not cause too much of a commotion when she displayed the Dao Sense technique in front of everyone today. Each of the cultivators were talking about how she couldn't be compared to Ning Fan. It was really ear-piercing. "What does it have to do with me whether you know Dao Sense technique or not?" Ning Fan said expressionlessly. "I just want to tell you that I will defeat you in the 3rd round. Be it you, Su Dao or Jun Zhangdong, I will defeat all of them." Yu Han said and continued walking towards the first tomb. Ning Fan's face was still expressionless, as if he did not hear her provocation at all. Just like Yuan Kuang and Yu Han, Ning Fan would not mind if they only provoked him verbally. However, Yu Han was also quite powerful. She did not leave the tomb palace even once from the first tomb to the 9th one. Moreover, she only spent 20 breaths to pass the 9th tomb. She only spent 100 breaths to pass the 10th tomb. After that, she finally left the tomb palace for the first time and took a short rest. She spent 2 hours to pass the 11th tomb. When she walked out of the tomb palace, her body was already covered with many injuries. She spent 4 hours to pass the 12th tomb. When she walked out of the tomb palace, her yellow robes were stained with blood. Her chi was already weak, but she still wore a cold and arrogant expression as if there was a sense of arrogance in her bones. Although she knew that she might not be able to pass the 13th tomb with her current condition, she still gritted her teeth and walked into the tomb. In the 13th tomb, she struggled for 8 hours and finally passed it. However, the price she paid was half of her arm. In the 14th tomb, she was helpless and failed to pass it. However, it had already caused countless exclamations from the surrounding platforms. The 13th tomb. The first place of the previous tomb competition only passed the 13th tomb in the second round. Fairy Yuhan is able to pass the 13th tomb. She has a good chance of getting first place in this tomb competition. After losing half of her arm, Yuhan's face was pale and bloodless. However, she still looked at Ning Fan proudly. The interval between the second and third rounds was 3 months. These 3 months were enough for her to repair her arm, and it would not affect her performance in the third round. What a bold woman. She still dares to challenge the 14th tomb after losing her arm, Ning Fan muttered to himself indifferently. However, that was all. He did not pay too much attention to her. Instead, his gaze fell on Su Dao. When his name was called, Su Dao slowly walked forward. Each of his steps was indescribably profound. Even though he was not like Ning Fan, who stepped on the veins of the Dao laws with each of his steps, he was still considered to be approaching the Dao. Of course, after Ning Fan's stunning performance in the previous round, his footwork did not cause too many people to be astonished. At most, they would praise him a little. When he reached Ning Fan's side, Su Dao actually stopped and looked at him coldly. "I heard that you killed Sun Yan? So what if I did?" Ning Fan did not deny it. On that day, he killed Sun Yan in front of many cultivators of the Godly Void Pavilion. The report of Sun Yan's death had probably reached the Godly Void Pavilion long ago. Since the other party asked him directly, it was obviously meaningless for him to deny it. "I am Sun Yan's cousin. Of course, I have to avenge him. It was a fair battle for you to kill him. If I kill you, it will also be a fair battle. In the third round, I will kill you with my own hands. You can prepare yourself." As soon as he finished speaking, Su Dao stepped into the first tomb and went all the way to the 11th tomb. Only then did he leave the tomb palace to rest. In the 12th tomb, Su Dao spent 100 breaths to pass. In the 13th tomb, Su Dao spent 1 hour. In the 14th tomb, Su Dao spent 6 hours. In the 15th tomb, Su Dao spent 12 hours. In the 16th tomb, Su Dao did not attempt it. Instead, he directly gave up. He actually passed the 15th tomb. This Su Dao was absent in the previous tomb competition. If he participates, I'm afraid the first place will change hands. Many old monsters on the 4 tall platforms said with astonishment, "I will wait for you in the third round." Su Dao said coldly. Even though his voice was cold, he openly issued a challenge to Ning Fan. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. Even though this Su Dao was at the mid-true crossing realm, he probably would not lose to ordinary late true crossing realm experts. Since this person issued a challenge to him openly, Ning Fan naturally would not reject it. If he meets Su Dao in the third round, let's fight to the death. Jun family Jun Changdong. Elder Yan's voice resounded and he called Jun Changdong's name. Jun Changdong was slightly stunned. Then, he shook his head with a faint smile. The people on the 4 tall platforms were discussing fervently. Most of them were talking about topics like, Ning Fan is indeed the finale. Which tomb is Brother Jun's target? Ning Fan suddenly asked Jun Changdong. He still had a good impression of Jun Changdong. The 5th tomb. Jun Changdong gave a meaningful smile and stepped into the first tomb. Everyone was expecting Jun Changdong to achieve an even more shocking result. However, he directly walked out of the 5th tomb and gave up on the 6th tomb. With the shock brought by Yuhan and Su Dao, many people would think that it was natural for Jun Changdong to pass the 16th tomb. However, Jun Changdong only reached the 5th tomb and then gave up. It really made many people's jaws drop. On the seats of the Jun family, many old monsters frowned and began to discuss among themselves. Could it be that this bone immortal monarch is afraid of being ambushed again in the second round? Is that why he only wants to advance to the next round and not achieve a good result in the second round? Perhaps the bone immortal monarch knows that his result is not as good as Su Dao and Yuhan, so he simply gave up on the second round. Only Ning Fan understood why Jun Changdong would do such a shocking thing. His eyes flickered with green light. He also stopped at the sixth tomb and fell into deep thought. After a while, he said to Jun Changdong, "Thanks for the reminder. This Jun didn't warn you. Brother Ning, please be more careful." Jun Zhangdong smiled indifferently and quietly put away the perception compass in his sleeve. This compass was specially used to sense that ferocious creature. Jun Changdong would not be ambushed by that creature for the second time. Before entering the tomb, he already knew the location of that creature. According to his senses, that creature was lurking in the sixth tomb. The reason why he stopped at the fifth tomb was because he wanted to avoid confronting that ferocious being. At the same time, he was also reminding Ning Fan not to enter the sixth tomb. Luo family Ning Fan. As Elder Yen softly called out the last name, the surroundings fell into silence. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Ning Fan. Due to his outstanding performance in the first round, Ning Fan was placed as the last to enter the second round. Countless old monsters were looking forward to seeing Ning Fan give them a shock again. I wonder how many tombs he can pass. If he can pass the 15th tomb, the third round will be a tough battle. Su Dao muttered to himself. Su Dao is just an accident. It's impossible for him to surpass me like Su Dao. Yu Han gritted her teeth. She did not want to be outdone by Ning Fan. This kid will die in the sixth tomb, Chen Xian thought to himself. His face was filled with a cold smile and he did not say a word. Li Xiaoxiao sat up straight while the little demoness opened her sleepy eyes and yawned. The expressions of countless old monsters were lifted after seeing Ning Fan enter the first tomb. They wanted to see a miracle once again. Unfortunately, those old monsters who wanted to see a miracle were destined to be disappointed. Ning Fan stayed in the first tomb for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. What is old ancestor Qian Qiu doing? With his strength, he should be able to pass the first tomb in an instant. Why is he taking such a long time? Some old monsters whispered to each other. Inside the tomb palace of the first tomb, what entered Ning Fan's sight was a desolate graveyard. The moment Ning Fan stepped into the first tomb, thousands of illusory dead spirits flew out from the graveyard. Most of these undead spirits did not have high cultivation bases. Only a few of them had reached the early ghost profound realm. In less than 3 breaths after he entered the tomb palace, he had already killed all the undead spirits in this place. Leaving one undead spirit for the time being, Ning Fan walked to the other end of the tomb palace. There was a teleportation formation there that led directly to the second tomb. If Ning Fan kills the last undead spirit, the teleportation formation would light up and he would be teleported to the second tomb. Of course, if he does not choose to teleport, he would be teleported back to the outside world in a few breaths and he would have to walk to the second tomb. However, as long as he did not kill all the undead spirits, he could stay in this place for a long time without being chased out. Ning Fan squatted down. The rain intent flashed in his eyes and he placed his palm on the teleportation formation. With the power of the teleportation formation, Ning Fan sent the rain intent to the second tomb, the third tomb, the fourth tomb and all the way to the sixth tomb. In the tomb palace of the sixth tomb, it immediately started drizzling. All of a sudden, Ning Fan sensed many things. This lasted for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. After that, Ning Fan suddenly rose to his feet with a solemn expression. It's actually a mid-shedding void innate lightning spirit. It's fine if it's just a mid-shedding void innate lightning spirit. It's just a lightning spirit after all. With my lightning diagram ability, I might be able to deal with it. However, there seems to be some kind of chi on this lightning spirit which makes me feel very uneasy. It's as if something bad will happen once I kill this lightning spirit. What kind of feeling is this? Ning Fan felt a chill and palpitations from the depths of his soul as if there was an unprecedented danger ahead of him. This kind of feeling was extremely rare in his life of cultivation. At this moment, the trace of Jie blood in his veins was boiling. At the moment when this feeling appeared, Ning Fan's expression changed greatly. All of a sudden, he thought of something. There was also a trace of Jie blood in the body of the innate lightning spirit in front of him. All of a sudden, Ning Fan made up his mind. No matter whether he could kill the innate lightning spirit in the sixth tomb or not, it was not advisable for him to go there. The trace of Jie blood in the lightning spirit gave him a sense of danger. It was too heavy. As expected, I should also learn from Jun Changdong and stop at the fifth tomb. Ning Fan made up his mind. He immediately waved his hand and killed the last undead spirit in this place. At the moment when the teleportation formation was activated, Ning Fan stepped into it and entered the second tomb. Then, he went straight into the sixth tomb while waiting for the teleportation formation to exit the fifth tomb. All of a sudden, he looked at the teleportation formation leading to the sixth tomb in disbelief. His initial thought of leaving the fifth tomb was dispelled at this moment. Instead, he took a step into the sixth tomb. He actually sensed an extremely familiar qi from the lightning spirit in the sixth tomb. The thing that emitted this qi was a bone whip that was refined from white bones. Every single trace of qi on the bone whip belonged to Hong Yi, the lightning sovereign. It's Hong Yi's bones. What happened to her? Why were her bones refined into a whip? Chapter 843. The sixth tomb was empty. There was not a single undead spirit. The moment Ning Fan stepped into the tomb palace, the entire place seemed to be suppressed by an invisible force. He could not summon any undead spirit and no one was allowed to leave either. Ning Fan stood in the boundless graveyard. His eyes were filled with madness as if he was possessed by a devil. He did not know why the innate lightning spirit would have a bone whip that was refined from Hong Yi's bones. He knew that the innate lightning spirit possessed the calamity blood. It was only right for him to avoid it if he could. However, he still came. He had to come. When he noticed that the bone was Hong Yi's bone, he felt a bone-piercing pain in his heart. Various guesses kept popping up in his mind. He wondered if something had happened to Hong Yi. Otherwise, why would her bone be refined into a weapon? He did not dare to think about it. He did not even dare to think about it. The thought of something happening to Hong Yi only flashed in his mind for a moment before he extinguished it. He would not allow anything to happen to Hong Yi. Before he ascended, he had already arranged for Emperor Xia and the old devil to guard the lower world. How could something happen to it? If Hong Yi stays in the rain world, she should be very safe. However, what if she ascends? Would she encounter danger in the ancient demon's abyss? Damn it! Why is her bone here? Why? Ning Fan clenched his fists tightly. His qi was terrifyingly cold. However, he managed to suppress all the worries in his heart. It was useless for him to make random guesses now. The only thing he could do now was to take Hong Yi's bone whip back from the lightning spirit. He would not allow anyone to desecrate her bone. Anyone who dares to refine her bone into a weapon must be courting death. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. His 10 fingers formed a series of hand seals and the rain intent in his eyes moved. Heaven and earth immediately turned gloomy and it started to drizzle. Show yourself. Ning Fan's eyes turned sharp and he shouted coldly. Then he stomped heavily on the ground. The baleful qi around him immediately turned into boundless blood-red flames, burning in all directions. The curtain of rain in heaven and earth was immediately attracted by his step. It merged with the wind and blew in all directions. The space inside the tomb palace immediately trembled violently. Even the laws of Tao laws were slightly distorted. The figure made of green lightning that had been hiding here the entire time immediately trembled and appeared. There was a trace of instinctive shock in her single eye. It was a green lightning figure that was 6 feet tall. Its face was empty, and it had no nose or ears. There was only a small mouth with cherry lips, and there was a vertical eye between its brows. It was extremely strange and terrifying. From the shape of the figure, this Qing Lei figure was slim and graceful like a woman, so it should be a female. In terms of race, this woman was closer to the god race. Her aura was completely different from that of the demons. The scent of prey, Jie Shui's scent, Red Yaksha's scent. The woman's voice was hoarse and cold. Not much emotion could be discerned from her voice. Her eyes were somewhat empty, and her spiritual intelligence seemed to be low. After the initial shock, the Green Lightning Woman was slightly confused. In just one encounter, she could sense 3 different kinds of qi from Ning Fan's body. The aura of her prey naturally referred to the mission that Lei Jinshi gave her. Her prey in this tomb competition was only one person, and that was the tomb keeper of the Luo clan, Eng Fan. The red yaksha's scent also triggered her killing intent. After she reconstructed her lightning spirit body, she had forgotten a lot of things. She even forgot who the red yaksha was. However, she vaguely remembered that the red yaksha was her enemy. She had once destroyed his corpse and refined it into a weapon. Therefore, when she sensed the scent of the red yaksha from Ning Fan's body, her eyes immediately flashed with deeper killing intent. As for the jieshue's scent, it made her feel a little confused. The person who possessed the jieshue must be the Tai Tsang Jieling. He must be of the same race as her. However, she could not remember what the Tai Tsang Jieling was. "Are you an enemy or a friend?" the Green Lightning Woman asked in a hoarse voice. "Hand over the bone whip in your body." Ning Fan's cold tone immediately aroused the killing intent of the Green Lightning Woman. "You want the bone whip of the red yaksha. You are the slave of the red yaksha. You are the enemy of me, Qing Naoyuo." At this moment, the confusion in the Green Lightning Woman's eyes disappeared. A wave of mid-shedding void realm aura force immediately spread out from her body and pressed towards Ning Fan ferociously with endless killing intent. At the same time, the Green Lightning Woman tapped the tip of her toes and immediately turned into a ray of green lightning. With a flash, she disappeared without a trace. Without any warning, Ning Fan felt cold qi rushing up to his head from his back. He could even faintly hear the crackling sound of thunder. It seemed to be extremely far away but also seemed to be very close to him in the blink of an eye. Without any hesitation, Ning Fan immediately summoned the ancient devil puppet behind him. Then, his body swayed and turned into countless black shadows, disappearing without a trace. The ancient devil puppet was left to deal with the crisis. The ancient devil puppet appeared in the wind. Without saying a word, it directly threw both of its fists at a place where there was no one around. There was a woman clad in blue lightning holding a blue lightning vortex in each of her hands. She pushed her palms forward and the 2 lightning vortexes immediately smashed into the ancient devil puppet's body, producing the power of countless bolts of lightning that could shatter the puppet. The ancient devil puppet subconsciously threw out both of its fists in an attempt to block the 2 lightning balls. When the shadow and the puppet collided, destructive force immediately spread out between heaven and earth. The ancient devil puppet, which had always been successful in every endeavor, only managed to destroy the 2 lightning balls this time. Both of its arms trembled violently and its entire body was immediately wrapped by green lightning. It was paralyzed and was directly sent flying away. In terms of strength, it was probably much weaker than the Green Lightning Woman. On the other hand, the Green Lightning Woman did not take even half a step back. However, she was still in a state where she did not have enough strength left after defeating the ancient devil puppet. She could only watch as a black shadow condensed on her right and a white-robed figure appeared. It was Ning Fan. Ancient God Roar. At the moment Ning Fan appeared, he held a jade slip in each of his hands and crushed it at the same time. These 2 jade slips were the jade slips of the void-shedding strike. They were personally refined by Chen Xian and were given to the tomb guardians of his clan. However, they were snatched away by Ning Fan. At the moment the 2 jade slips were crushed, a gigantic shadow of an ancient god appeared on both sides of Ning Fan's body. Unlike when they fought against Ning Fan, the 2 ancient gods did not show any fear when facing the Green Lightning Woman. Their eyes were filled with blazing divine light. Moreover, because Ning Fan, a 3 apertures ancient god, was at their side, the 2 ancient gods' battle-intent soared to the heavens. Each of them unleashed a star-shattering roar and unleashed 120% of the power of their abilities. Roar, circles of sound rings that were filled with golden divine light swept up thousands of destructive sound waves and violently struck the Green Lightning Woman's body. The Green Lightning Woman let out a muffled groan. Her transformed form immediately showed signs of dispersing and became slightly unstable. After taking a few steps back, she finally stabilized her body. The killing intent in her eyes intensified. Then she turned her hand and pointed at Ning Fan's dantian. As soon as she pointed her finger, tens of thousands of green lightning runes immediately appeared in heaven and earth. They were continuous like the Tao and shone with divine light. At the moment when the finger light shot out, Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. Without any hesitation, he immediately summoned a set of black battle armor that was shrouded in devil chi. It was the star-defying devil armor. When the finger light came close to her, it immediately split into three. One of them went straight at Ning Fan and landed on the star-defying devil armor, while the other two landed on the two ancient gods' giant shadows behind Ning Fan. After all, the giant shadows were just giant shadows. As soon as they received such a powerful attack, they immediately trembled and collapsed. The star-defying devil armor, on the other hand, was unusually sturdy. Even after receiving a third of the finger force from the Green Lightning Woman, it was not damaged at all. However, the tremendous force that landed on the devil armor still pushed Ning Fan hundreds of steps away. His chi was in a mess and he only managed to stabilize it after much difficulty. When he looked at the Green Lightning Woman again, his eyes were filled with seriousness. In the first confrontation, he had joined forces with the ancient devil puppet and used 2 jade slips of the void-rending technique. Even with the star-defying devil armor's defense, he was still completely defeated. He was far from being a match for the Green Lightning Woman. The slave of the Red Yiksha is also a traitor. Kill without mercy. The Green Lightning Woman tapped the ground with the tip of her feet and dashed towards Ning Fan again. The killing intent in her eyes intensified. Of course, Ning Fan could not understand the profound meaning of the words that came out of her mouth. He also did not have the time to think about it. At the moment when the Green Lightning Woman rushed towards him, Ning Fan immediately retreated to the back of the ancient devil puppet and activated the lightning star. With a wave of his hand, all the paralyzing lightning on the ancient devil puppet's body were kept away. As soon as the paralyzing effect disappeared, the ancient devil puppet immediately dashed forward under Ning Fan's control and blocked the attack of the Green Lightning Woman once again. Even though it was not a match for the Green Lightning Woman, it was still able to stop her for a while. This lightning spirit's strength is unfathomable. Besides, there's also the Jie blood in her body which makes me feel uneasy. It won't be easy to kill her. But if it's for the sake of retrieving the bone of red robes, it doesn't matter how difficult it is. First transformation. While the ancient devil puppet was blocking the Green Lightning Woman, Ning Fan directly activated the war god art. His black hair instantly turned blood red and danced wildly in the wind and rain. The pitter-patter of rain could be heard, but Ning Fan's heart became calmer in the rain. The divine rain star on his glabella immediately appeared under Ning Fan's will. The moment the divine star appeared, Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned sharp and he shouted coldly, "Yin Yang Rain, unseal." The power of the Yin Yang Rain was too strong. It was sealed by ancient chaos. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base, he could at most unseal it for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. If he exceeded the time it took for an incense stick to burn, then he would suffer injuries from the backlash. If he exceeded 2 hours, then his soul would immediately be destroyed and he would die a graveless death. This technique couldn't be used for a long time, but it was enough to use it to determine the victor of the battle with the Woman of Green Lightning. At the moment when the Yin Yang Rain was unsealed, Ning Fan's aura force instantly exploded and skyrocketed. His cultivation level rose from the peak of the Spirit Mystic Realm to the Crossing Truth Realm, then from the early stage of the Crossing Truth Realm to the middle stage, then the late stage. After advancing to the late True Crossing Realm, Ning Fan's magical power was close to the peak True Crossing Realm. He took a deep breath and suddenly clawed at the ground with his fingers. His red hair flew in the air. At this moment, he used the soul extraction technique. The soul extraction art spread out of the palace tomb and spread out in all directions. The star souls of the 7 nearby cultivation planets were extracted at the same time. Star soul extraction art. Countless exclamations immediately came from the high platform outside. Countless eyes were staring at the 6th tomb. They couldn't believe that Ning Fan could actually cultivate the soul extraction art to the star soul extraction realm. Moreover, he even extracted the star souls of 7 cultivation planets in one go. They couldn't understand why Ning Fan's speed was so slow and why he used such a powerful soul extraction art in such a weak place like the 6th tomb. The eyes of the few old ancestors of Luo clan darkened at the same time. Luo Shi's eyes turned cold and the little demoness eyes were filled with undisguised worry. Those who were observant gradually realized that something must have happened in the 6th tomb. Why did Jun Zhangdong give up the challenge of the 6th tomb? Why did Ning Fan use such a powerful ability in the 6th tomb? All of these were worth pondering. Lei Jinshi, you must give me an explanation after this tomb competition. The great elder of the godly void pavilion's eyes were extremely gloomy. He was also one of the 3 elders who built the palace tomb. Naturally, he knew some of Lei Jinshi's tricks. It wasn't the first time that Lei Jinshi planted a lightning spirit in the palace tomb to ambush the juniors. He didn't ask about it when he ambushed Jun Zhangdong in the last competition. This time, he couldn't help but get involved in this matter. Jun Zhangdong was a junior after all. It wasn't impossible for him to turn a blind eye, but Ning Fan was different. Who was Ning Fan? He was an expert who had the potential to become an ancient immortal venerable. If Lei Jinshi killed him in the tomb, it would be fine. But if he didn't, such an offense would definitely add a great enemy to the godly void pavilion in the future. Hearing this, Lei Jinshi's eyes were filled with anger, but he didn't dare to flare up at the great elder. He just snorted coldly and didn't say anything. He wasn't the only one who ambushed the juniors. Hadn't the great elder done it before? Did he deserve to criticize himself? What should we do? Little friend Ning seems to be in trouble. Should I inform the Plague King to help? Ghost Soldier Old Ancestor frowned, his eyes filled with worry. Just as this thought appeared in his mind, he was shocked. Only then did he realize that the Plague King, LV1, had appeared on the empty seat beside him. He was looking at the 6th tomb palace with slight disdain. Qin Gui greets the Plague King. How long has the Plague King been here? How come I don't know? Ghost Soldier Old Ancestor didn't dare to be negligent and immediately greeted LV Feng. He has been here for a while. Pumph. Lei Jinshi, Chen Xian, how dare these ants provoke fellow Taoist Ning? They are really courting death. LV Feng snorted disdainfully. With his immortal king's eyesight, he could vaguely see what was happening in the 6th tomb. He wasn't worried about Ning Fan's safety. He didn't think that Ning Fan would be killed by some intermediate void-rending lightning spirit. In his mind, Ning Fan was most likely an immortal king. How could he be hurt by a void-rending lightning spirit? Of course, Ning Fan might not dare to use his full strength to hide his cultivation base. If that's the case, he wouldn't mind helping Ning Fan and making him owe him a favor. However, didn't Brother Ning want to hide his cultivation base? Why did he use the Dao Sense technique in the first round of the tomb competition? Aren't you afraid of arousing suspicion? The world only thinks that he is Gui Xian. Naturally, they would be shocked that he could use the Dao Sense technique. However, I am well aware that he is an immortal king. How could he not even use the Dao Sense technique? Speaking of which, Brother Ning's Dao Sense technique is really profound. If he uses it with his full strength, I'm afraid there aren't many immortal kings who could withstand it. Today's star soul extraction technique isn't weak either. The precision of his soul extraction is slightly better than mine. He is indeed fellow Taoist Ning. The repeated facts made LV Feng more and more convinced that Ning Fan was an ancient immortal king. Ning Fan naturally wouldn't know about it and he wouldn't care about it. Currently, he had extracted the star souls of the 7 cultivation planets in the nearby starry sky and swallowed them into his stomach. The strength of his magic power immediately reached the peak of the crossing truth realm. In addition to the heavenly devil physical body and the war god secret art, Ning Fan's current body and magic power was stronger than any cultivator of the crossing truth realm, even though his aura force was slightly weaker than Shikong's. At this moment, Ning Fan was in his strongest form. He was almost invincible under Shikong's strength. It was this strength that gave Ning Fan the confidence to compete for the first place in the tomb competition and the confidence to fight against the innate lightning spirit. With his current strength, it wouldn't be difficult for him to take down the innate lightning spirit using the lightning diagram. The only thing he had to worry about was the blood calamity of the lightning spirit. The green lightning lady who was fighting against the ancient devil puppet suddenly felt Ning Fan's chi skyrocketing. Her gaze immediately shifted to Ning Fan. At this moment, even though the green lightning lady did not have a high spiritual wisdom, she also felt a trace of astonishment. Ning Fan, who was only at the peak of the ghost profound realm, could actually become invincible in the crossing truth realm within a short period of time after displaying a series of techniques. It's a pity that he's the slave of the red yaksha. Otherwise, I can keep him as my slave. The green lightning lady harumphed coldly. Her killing intent rose again. She waved her palm and forced the ancient devil puppet to take 1,000 steps back. With a tap of her toes, she immediately got rid of the puppet and dashed towards Ning Fan. At this moment, Ning Fan was already in his strongest form. Even when facing a mid-shedding void lightning spirit, he did not have the feeling of being unable to resist it like before. Punishment lightning whip, appear. The green lightning lady spat out a ray of red light from her mouth. That red light was a sizzling red lightning bolt. It was completely different from the lightning power of her green lightning body. Under the red light was a white bone lightning whip. As the lightning whip lashed out, heaven and earth flashed with a red light, as if it was directly split into two by the lightning. A sense of extinction immediately rose in Ning Fan's heart. At the moment when he was hit by the lightning whip, the tremendous force passed through the star-defying devil armor and spread to his entire body. Ning Fan felt a sharp pain in his chest and coughed out blood. At the moment when he was hit by the lightning whip, countless shadows of lightning whips appeared in his dantian and lashed at his primordial spirit. It was extremely similar to Hong Yi's divine lightning technique. The bones of this lightning whip really belonged to Hong Yi. Ning Fan suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. He did not dare to imagine what kind of accident had happened to Hong Yi that caused her to be whipped by someone. He did not dare to think about it. He was unwilling to think about it. He could not bear to think about it. His heart was filled with monstrous flames of anger. The source of all his anger was directed at the green lightning lady. Reverse. Ning Fan shouted coldly and directly activated the strongest ability of the star-defying devil armor. Although the defense of this devil armor was heaven-defying, its most powerful ability was still the star-defying power within it. This power could reverse a cultivator's abilities and magic techniques and bounce them back. At the moment when Ning Fan shouted the word, defying, 90% of the countless whip shadows that appeared in his dantian immediately dissipated. 90% of the lightning power was reflected back and bombarded the green lightning lady's body violently. The green lightning lady was immediately shaken by the lightning power. Her lightning body seemed to have dissipated. Her eyes were filled with astonishment. The remaining 10% of the lightning power still turned into whip shadows and lashed at Ning Fan's primordial spirit. In just an instant, Ning Fan's injuries had become so severe that he could no longer hold on. His primordial spirit became weak. His body became weaker and weaker, but the fury and determination in his eyes became more intense. No matter who you are, you must return the bones of Hong Yi to me today. If you don't, you will die. Ning Fan made a leap and soared into the sky. With a single step, he stepped on the vast sky. As soon as he took that step, a gigantic lightning diagram with flashes of blood-red lightning immediately appeared in the sky. Ning Fan pointed his finger at the lightning diagram and it immediately rolled towards the green lightning lady, as if it wanted to drag her into it. The moment she saw the lightning diagram, her face was filled with fear. Even though her spiritual intelligence was low, she could feel a great danger from the lightning diagram. With Ning Fan's current strength, which was close to Shikong, it was highly possible that he could capture and kill her directly if he forcefully opened the lightning diagram. The slave of the red yaksha. Fortunately, if this person's tribulation blood is with me, I can borrow the power of the tribulation sense to kill him. Traces of tribulation sense red light suddenly flew out from the soul eye of the green lightning lady, wrapping around her body and protecting her. At the next moment, she was forcefully sucked into the lightning diagram. It did not go as smoothly as Ning Fan expected. After the green lightning lady was sucked into the lightning diagram for 3 breaths, the lightning diagram immediately emitted countless rays of tribulation sense red light. At the next moment, the lightning diagram collapsed. The green lightning lady reappeared in the world of the Tomb Palace. She swallowed the white bone lightning whip back into her abdomen and waved both of her hands. Immediately, countless red clouds appeared between heaven and earth. All of them were formed by the tribulation sense. An unprecedented sense of danger immediately rose in Ning Fan's heart. What a strong tribulation sense! I must destroy this sea of tribulation sense before it is completely formed. Otherwise, I won't be able to escape death. However, I must take this bone with me no matter what. Even this tribulation sense of the heavens won't be able to stop me. I won't allow anyone to desecrate her bone. 5 swords appear. As soon as Ning Fan's voice fell, 5 rays of sword light immediately flew out from his sword pouch and soared into the sky. Facing the green lightning lady, Ning Fan could not hold back anymore. The only thing he could do now was to display his strongest ability to destroy the sea of red clouds. The 5 yin-yang swords. Naturally, he still could not display the true 5 yin-yang swords at the moment. He could only display the simplified version of the 5 sword techniques. The simplified version was not the 5 yin-yang swords but the 5 rain swords. At the moment when the 5 swords soared into the sky, it was as if all the rain in this world had to obey Ning Fan's command. Traces of the power of the Tao of Rain spread out in all directions like a spider weaving a web. Rain comes from the clouds. When the clouds give birth to rain, it means to follow. When the rain breaks through the clouds, it means to go against. All the rain in this world, listen to my command. Go against. Chapter 844. It was as if a voice pierced through the sky. At this moment, all the rain in this world had to obey Ning Fan's command. It was as if there was a will added to the rules of the Tao law. At the moment when the 5 immortal swords soared into the sky, that will reached its peak and all of it was integrated into the word. Defy. The rain came from the clouds. Today, the rain was going to defy the clouds. Cultivation came from the tribulation. Today, it was going to defy the tribulation. It was as if there were millions of raindrops falling into the ears of the green lightning lady, causing her only eye to be filled with astonishment. This young man can actually control a trace of the Tao law of rain in this world. She could not help but be shocked. Even though Ning Fan only controlled a trace of the Tao law of rain and did not completely control it, even an ancient immortal venerate might not be able to do it. Ning Fan's great 5 elements physique was activated to its maximum at this moment. All of his magic power seemed to be channeled into the 5 swords. As soon as the 5 immortal swords soared into the sky, they immediately slashed down at the boundless red clouds at lightning speed. 5 rays of sword light immediately shot out at the same time. In an instant, all the rain in the world turned into the shadows of the immortal swords. The millions of celestial swords gave off an extremely terrifying will, as if they were going to split the world in half, as if they were going to split the chaos in half, as if they were going to split everything in their way. If the heavens block the way, split the heavens. If the earth blocks the way, split the earth. If anyone blocks the way, kill them. If the gods block the way, kill them. If the ghosts block the way, slay them. The layers of red clouds that had yet to form the tribulation sense divine ability immediately collapsed. At the moment when the red clouds in the sky were destroyed, Ning Fan changed his hand seal. The millions of rain swords immediately fell towards the green lightning lady. Among them, there were 5 sword shadows with unparalleled power which made the green lightning lady tremble in fear. Among the 5 sword shadows, 4 of them were obtained from old ancestor Wei Qin during the Great Tribulation of 6 Desires. They were called the 4 Swords of Wei Qin. They were 5th Nirvana acquired immortal swords. The remaining one was the relic of Six Desires' immortal king. It was a 12th Nirvana-acquired immortal sword, separation and reunion sword. The 5 swords of rain were controlled by the 5 sword spirits. With the help of the 5 swords of yin and yang, they slashed toward the green lightning woman with murderous intent. The lightning woman was shocked. Her delicate body immediately grew taller, and she turned into a muscular one-eyed giant. Every inch of her skin was made of lightning. As soon as the one-eyed giant appeared, he immediately slammed his hand forward. The scarlet tribulation will turned into a palm print and smashed forward. Immediately, millions of rain swords collapsed one after another. Every time a sword projection crumbled, the might of the palm print would weaken slightly, and the tribulation will contained within it would crumble bit by bit. When there were only 5 immortal swords left in the world, 2/3 of the sword perception in the palm print had already disappeared and melted into the rain. Destroy! As soon as Ning Fan uttered a word, the 5 immortal swords immediately dashed forward. The sword intent of the rain soared to the sky and directly shattered the palm imprint that had lost its power. The one-eyed giant was shocked, and his hand reached out to grab the 5 swords. The sword intent of the 4-minute swords immediately crumbled under his grasp, and they retreated madly. As for the palm of the one-eyed giant, for ghastly wounds immediately appeared. They were slashed by the law and could not be healed. The separation and reunion sword was a dignified 12 Nirvana post-celestial immortal sword. Its grade was infinitely close to that of an innate treasure. It was not something that the one-eyed giant could retreat from just by grabbing it. However, the separation and reunion sword needed to absorb the power of blood essence in order to unleash its power. This was one of the biggest drawbacks of this sword. As Ning Fan's blood essence rapidly disappeared, the power of the separation and reunion sword was stimulated bit by bit. It was almost able to unleash 1% of the sword's power. As the sword light flashed, the world of the Tomb Palace was immediately divided into 2. Under the sword light, the one-eyed giant was forcefully cut into 2. He let out a miserable shriek and died instantly. His body shattered into green lightning that filled the sky. She stared at Ning Fan in disbelief, her eyes filled with endless resentment. She was actually killed by the slave of the Red Yaksha. The terrifying sword intent spread across the 6th Tomb Palace to the 4 high platforms, stirring up all the rain intent in the world. Countless eccentrics on the 4 high platforms immediately stood up and looked at the rain and mist in disbelief. All the rain mist in the Eastern Sea was drawn by Ning Fan's sword. What kind of sword technique is this? It can actually draw a trace of the Tao law of rain in the world and condense it into a sword light. It's a divine ability that draws the Tao law. Not even the ancient immortal venerables could display such a divine ability. It can't be wrong. The chi in this sword intent belongs to old ancestor Qian Qiu. This sword light was cast by him. This old ancestor Qian Qiu can actually display such a terrifying sword technique. Even a mid-shedding void realm expert wouldn't be able to withstand the power of this sword. Yu Han was the closest to the 6th tomb. Naturally, she could feel the sword intent of the tomb the most vividly. Her beautiful eyes widened and her delicate body trembled uncontrollably due to fear. She kept retreating. When the sword intent rushed towards her, the sound of millions of raindrops immediately resounded in her mind. Each drop of rain shook her Tao heart. It was as if her Tao experience was going to melt in the sound of the rain. It was unstoppable and undefeatable. That was what Yu Han felt most vividly when she faced the sword intent. She was initially annoyed by Ning Fan, but at this moment, she felt a chill down her spine. She originally had the thought of competing with Ning Fan, but at this moment, she no longer dared to compete with him. That Ning Fan has actually become so powerful. Su Dao stared at the palace of the 6th tomb in disbelief. A chill rose from the bottom of his feet and went straight to the top of his head. If Ning Fan had such terrifying strength, how would he dare to fight Ning Fan to the death for Sun Yan? His relationship with Sun Yan was just superficial. It wasn't that deep. Is this Brother Ning's true strength? Even if I fuse all of my bone clones, I still won't be a match for him. If he uses it too many times in the third round, I will be completely defeated. If he has such strength, it won't be difficult for him to go straight to the 24th tomb. Will the third round still exist? Jun Zhangdong smiled bitterly. The might of the sword moved countless old monsters. On the northern platform, the 8 elders including Luo Shi were so shocked that they couldn't speak a word. Only the 8th elder, Lei Jinshi, stared at the broken life token in his hand. His eyes turned scarlet because of anger. This was the life token of the lightning spirit. Now that it was broken, it meant that the lightning spirit had been killed by Ning Fan. The lightning spirit is dead. The lightning spirit is dead. My millions of years of hard work has gone down the drain. Little Ning Fan, you're courting death. The millions of cultivators in the outside world finally got what they wanted. The 5 Sword of Rain this time triggered the Tao Law and commanded the rain of heaven and earth. It was even more shocking than the West Wind technique. Once again, they witnessed a miracle caused by the ghost profound life immortal. In the 6th tomb, the lightning spirit turned into countless green lightning bolts after its death. They filled the sky with buzzing sounds like the shrill cries of thousands of birds. Among the countless lightning bolts, the voices of the 5 little girls resounded excitedly. Tremble in fear, little lightning spirit that is neither a man nor a woman. How can you be a match for big sister? Humph. Second sister hasn't had enough fun. If it wasn't for your quick death, second sister would have cut you another 500 times to let you know how powerful I am. Third sister will cut you 700 times. Fourth sister will cut you 900 times. 5. The ones who spoke were the 5 sword spirits that resided in the 5 immortal swords. If it was in the past, Ning Fan would have laughed when he heard the chatter of the 5 little girls. But now he couldn't laugh. The 5 swords of rain were unleashed together, and the blue thunder lightning spirit was finally killed. Even though he had killed the innate lightning spirit, Ning Fan's heart was still heavy and painful. Currently, Ning Fan's face was pale and he was extremely weak. 90% of his blood essence had been absorbed by the separation and reunion sword of the 5 Sword of Rain. Even though his chi was weak, his eyes were still as crazy as before. However, under the evil intent, there was heartache and sorrow. As soon as the innate lightning spirit died, its lightning body shattered into countless green lightning bolts. Among the lightning bolts, there was a trace of scarlet blood floating in the air. Ning Fan didn't seem to see the sky full of lightning bolts or the trace of blood. In his eyes, there was only the shadow of the white bone lightning whip. As soon as the lightning spirit died, the lightning whip immediately fell from the sky along with the drizzle. Ning Fan felt as if his heart was being torn apart. He stepped on the muddy ground and walked forward step by step, carefully catching the bone whip. His hand caressed the bone whip with an indescribable pain. This is her bone. Her bone has been refined into a weapon by someone. Wait. Ning Fan's eyes suddenly turned solemn. His hand touched the white bone and the sorrow on his face gradually disappeared. Then he revealed a solemn and puzzled expression. The chi in the bone was indeed very similar to Hong Yi. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't be able to see the difference. However, at this moment, Ning Fan touched the bone whip at a close distance. Finally, he could see a trace of difference from it. The chi of the bone was very similar to Hong Yi, but it wasn't the bone of Hong Yi. Moreover, this bone was clearly the bone of an ancient cultivator. It had existed for too long. Ning Fan carefully examined it and found that the bone of this bone whip had existed for at least hundreds of millions of years, or even longer. This bone had already existed long before Hong Yi was born. It's not her bone. It's just that the chi is similar. After confirming it repeatedly, Ning Fan heaved a sigh of relief. What he was most worried about was that Hong Yi's remains would be refined into a magic treasure by someone else. Now, it seemed like his worry was unnecessary. As he felt relieved, a feeling of weakness immediately rushed to his heart. Ning Fan looked at the bone whip in his hand. After pondering for a while, he kept it into the profound Yin world. When he looked at the sky full of broken lightning, his eyes turned cold. He waved his hand and summoned the lightning diagram, directly collecting the broken lightning and sealing them within it. This lightning spirit was formed innately. It had yet to take the form of a woman. According to the sword spirit, it was neither a man nor a woman. He couldn't use the yin-yang enchantment technique to deal with this kind of lightning spirit. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen into such a bitter battle. Even though it had yet to take the form of a human, the lightning power contained in its body was already extremely terrifying. Since it was an innate spiritual object, the lightning power contained in the broken lightning was extremely pure. It was very useful. Lei Jinshi, your Thunder Soul gift, I will accept it without hesitation. Ning Fan kept the broken lightning in the sky and bent his palm, drawing a trace of tribulation blood into his palm. The tribulation blood of the Tai Tsong tribulation spirit? I remember that the lightning spirit called herself Qing Naluo or something. In her words, she repeatedly mentioned the red yaksha. Qing Naluo, red yaksha, Tai Tsong tribulation spirit, Tai Tsong tribulation spirit, tribulation blood, tribulation sense, the master of tribulation sense. There was a great secret behind all of them. This is the tribulation blood in the body of the lightning spirit. Her tribulation blood is 10 times more than mine. If I devour this trace of tribulation blood, after pondering for a while, Ning Fan sealed this trace of tribulation sense and kept it temporarily. He would deal with it after the tomb competition is over. After consuming a pill to suppress the injuries caused by the blood essence, Ning Fan scanned the world of the tomb palace. As the lightning spirit fell, undead spirits began to fly out from the desolate tomb. 5 immortal swords descended from the sky and hovered around Ning Fan. 5 immortal girls' childish voices could be heard. Little Fan, we haven't had enough fun yet. If you haven't had enough fun, let's continue. Ning Fan changed his hand seal and the 5 immortal swords immediately rushed out. Carrying the power of rain, the sword light slashed on the ground. All the undead spirits in this place died under the sword light without any chance to resist. They could not withstand the power of the 5 rain swords. The 5 rain swords was the simplified version of the 5 yin-yang swords. It used the 4-minute swords and the separation and reunion swords as the carrier of the sword intent and the 5 sword spirits to assist them in executing the technique. After 6 months of arduous cultivation, Ning Fan finally formed a tacit understanding with the 5 little girls. He could now display the sword technique of the 5 yin-yang swords under the premise of unsealing the power of the yin-yang rain. The simplified version of the 5 yin-yang swords could not fully display the domineering power of cutting through heaven, earth, man, deity, and ghost. However, it could display the power of the yin-yang rain to its maximum. If it is used together with the power of the yin-yang rain, the 5 yin-yang swords could severely injure an early shedding void realm expert. If Ning Fan sacrifices his own blood essence to activate the power of the separation and reunion swords, this technique could even kill a mid-shedding void realm expert. Of course, the price of sacrificing one's blood essence was too great. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Ning Fan would not sacrifice his own blood essence. In just a short while, I won't be able to suppress the power of the yin-yang rain. Before I lose control of the power of the yin-yang rain, I must kill my way into the 24th tomb. I must seize the first place. After eliminating all the undead spirits in the 6th tomb, Ning Fan kept the slightly damaged ancient devil puppet and immediately entered the 7th tomb. In just 3 breaths of time, he broke through the 7th tomb. After another 3 breaths of time, he also broke through the 8th tomb, the 9th tomb, the 10th tomb, the 11th tomb. From the 1st to the 23rd tomb, Ning Fan only used 3 breaths of time to break through the tomb palace. Before entering the 23rd tomb, the undead spirit with the highest cultivation base was only at the peak crossing truth realm. No one could survive the attack of the 5 rain immortal swords. In the 24th tomb, the undead spirit with the highest cultivation base was at the early shedding void realm. When he arrived at this tomb, Ning Fan channeled what little power he had left into the 5 immortal swords and struck them with all his might. In the outside world, the 24th tomb shone with divine light and the door of the tomb exploded. Ning Fan kept the 5 swords and dragged his extremely weak body out of the 24th tomb step by step. Then he reappeared in front of everyone. The 4 tall platforms were in dead silence. Only the sound of people gasping could be heard. This year's tomb competition was destined to shock the world because Ning Fan managed to break through the 24th tomb palace in one go in the second round with just his peak ghost realm cultivation base. According to the rules of the competition, he would be promoted to the first place and the third round would be cancelled. This young man is incredible. Incredible. Elder Lu, who was standing beside Little Demoness, was shocked. He was already half a step into the shedding void realm, but facing Ning Fan now, he had a feeling that he was invincible. Of course he's incredible. He's Little Fan. Little Demoness smiled happily. Little Rong, look. My brother Casanova has broken through the 24th tomb and obtained the first place. Li Xiaoxiao said to Yen Rong excitedly. At this moment, although Ning Fan had kept the 5 rain immortal swords and sealed the yin-yang power of the rain, his aura was still so strong that it made countless old monsters feel pressured. Among the life immortals, no one could resist Ning Fan's aura. Among the true crossing realm, no one could resist Ning Fan's aura. Even some of the shedding void realm old monsters felt a little pressured under Ning Fan's aura. For example, Chen Xian, who was at the early shedding void realm, actually felt suffocated when facing Ning Fan. Another example was Elder Yen, who was in charge of the competition. She felt an indescribable fear in her heart when facing Ning Fan. It was as if capturing her alive was just a matter of time if Ning Fan unleashed his full cultivation base. This feeling was too absurd and too real, causing Elder Yan's aura to be in a mess for no reason. She steadied her aura and gradually calmed down. Only then did she remember that she still had the task of presiding over the competition. I hereby announce that because the tomb keeper of the Luo clan, Ning Fan, has broken through the 24th tomb, the third round of the competition is cancelled. The first place of this competition is Ning Fan. The rest of the tomb keepers will be ranked according to the results of the first 2 rounds. As soon as Elder Yan's voice fell, countless tomb keepers looked at Ning Fan with envy and respect. On the high platform in the north, the Divine Void Great Elder slowly stood up and looked at Ning Fan deeply. Just as he was about to announce that Ning Fan was the first place and give him the prize, Lei Jinshi, who was at the side, spoke first, breaking the atmosphere of the entire bronze platform. He doesn't have the right to be the first. How dare an ant like him kill this old man's lightning spirit? He's courting death. Lei Jinshi's eyes were bloodshot. He had already lost his mind. The innate lightning spirit that he had painstakingly cultivated was killed by Ning Fan. He couldn't stay calm. His original intention was to cultivate the lightning spirit to the thought fragmentation realm before devouring it. At that time, he might even have the chance to step into the peak of the thought fragmentation realm. However, this plan vanished the moment Ning Fan killed the lightning spirit. His dream of stepping into the peak of the thought fragmentation realm was shattered at this moment. There was no longer any rationality in his mind. There was only frenzied killing intent that kept surging. He swore to kill Ning Fan as soon as possible. Lei Jinshi took a step forward and condensed countless green lightning bolts in his hand. He immediately tried to grab Ning Fan. The strength of this grab contained all of his late thought fragmentation realm cultivation base. Moreover, it was a furious strike. Even the other elders beside him couldn't stop him in time. Suddenly, the shadows of thousands of green lightning dragons appeared between heaven and earth. A sense of danger immediately appeared in Ning Fan's heart. Not good. Luo Shi's face was filled with shock. He tried to block Lei Jinshi's attack with his Dao sense. However, before he could do anything, a cold harumph resounded. Just as the cold harumph resounded, all the lightning dragons between heaven and earth shrieked and collapsed. A wave of extremely ferocious plague Dao sense spread out. Lei Jinshi's eyes widened in shock. He could only smell the sweet fragrance of pear blossoms. Before he could react, his lips had already turned purple. Suddenly, he foamed at the mouth and fell to the ground. A wave of plague poison entered his body, immediately melting his primordial spirit into pus and blood. Lei Jinshi's eyes were filled with fear. He knew the person who attacked him. Plaking Vifo. Why did you attack me? Why did you stop me from killing a junior? Lei Jinshi's body trembled as he spoke. He couldn't remain calm in front of LV Feng. LV Feng was a peerless devil lord who killed without blinking an eye in the godly Void Pavilion. Due to his identity as an abandoned member of the secret race, even the divine Void Emperor did not dare to question him about his crimes. If LV Feng wanted to kill him here, he wouldn't be able to resist at all. He would certainly die and no one would save him. Why? LV Feng slowly stood up and sneered. I don't need a reason to kill. The moment the word die was uttered, Lei Jinshi's face became slightly distorted due to excessive fear. At this moment, his primordial spirit was devoured by the plague poison that penetrated his body. He was completely powerless to resist. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.